hazard mitigation plan. It's in tab A of the books.
This is something that we're required to do.
Yeah, right, I was just going to say, so the little bit I know about this is this is a very important item for us to maintain our affiliation with this mitigation. Basically what it does is it gives us resources from around the northern neck, like when we utilized in the April incident when we had the straight line winds / tornado that came through town, caused all that damage. We were fortunate to immediately get assistance from, in particular, Lancaster County, who came in and their folks stayed with us for a considerable amount of time, I think 48 hours, maybe 72, helped us run our emergency operations center and such. And it's good because it helps us get grant monies as well through the larger scale group of people. Obviously, the easier it is to get. There's training involved with it, and the previous town manager, not the acting, but the one before, she was involved and was on the committee or council, whatever they call it. So we may want to look into having our town manager back in the saddle and that type of thing, so we are updated on a regular basis. Nothing falls through the cracks for us. Well, being so close to the water, we are legitimately a target for obviously high water, hurricanes, wind, and such. So anyway,
And flash flooding.
flash flooding. Yeah, I would hope that the council supports this moving forward. Is this something we would vote on today, or do we vote on this
At the regular meeting.
at the regular meeting? Okay. Any questions from the council on this?
I guess I would have a question regarding, is there a section devoted to Colonial Beach, the town of Colonial Beach?
There's a book about this thick. Did you want to discuss it?
Yes, there is a section, we met with Mr. C from Westmoreland County, and there is a section directly related to Colonial Beach. We're also, this is going to kind of feed our own internal emergency operations plan as well. So this is kind of the master document that allows for these branch plans, depending on the type of emergency. Mr. Murphy, Public Works Director, is actively engaged in this effort as well.
Okay, I noticed this is an update. What has changed for Colonial Beach, if anything?
As far as I know, there were some additions that was added in coordination with Bill Cease, narrowing down as far as our population and stuff like that. And it also, basically also to get, makes us eligible for being funded.
I understand. I just wanted to try to understand what the impact of the upgrade and what requirements are placed on the town as a result of signing up to this.
Now, in terms of the methodologies and anything that's broad brush stroke changes that were known, most of them happy to go ahead. What it really did is it prompted us as a town to revisit our emergency operations and plan, which is how we're going to operate, and then to update that accordingly.
Yeah, prior to our voting on it, might be useful. I mean, it would be useful for me anyway if we just had a kind of like a synopsis of the salient features that apply to Colonial Beach, so we know what we're signing up to a little more clearly.
Understood.
Thank you.
I can, just on a wholesale note, I think that we would probably be the only jurisdiction in Virginia if we weren't part of the mitigation plan.
I'm not suggesting we don't sign it. I'm suggesting I just want to understand what we're signing.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on tab A? All right, tab B, discussion of subdividing owner mobile home trailer park. It's open for discussion.
Okay, I guess I should start since I started it with an email and some recommended changes. This all came about as a result of our meeting, I guess, back in April, in which we directed our zoning director to come up with some next steps for us in order to proceed with the option of subdividing Eleanor Park. She provided us all with a 3-page email and a list of attachments that came along with that. Upon reviewing those attachments specifically, I looked at our Colonial Beach subdivision ordinance. And I quite frankly was shocked to realize that previous town councils in this subdivision ordinance had actually provided the planning commission with complete authority to approve or disapprove any subdivision, and that the only recourse after that recommendation or that decision was to go to the courts to change it. And it seemed to me that that was a huge error, particularly when you consider that the governing body, this town council, is or may recommend subdividing the Elmwood Park. Makes no sense to me to turn that then back over to the planning commission and have them make a decision that indeed the only way we could overturn it was to take it to court. So I made some kind of ham-handed changes to it in order to try to give the flavor of where I thought we could go with revising this ordinance. And that's basically where we are right now. I made 3 recommendations. One was to revise the ordinance. The other was to pass a resolution that clearly enumerates the town council's desire to subdivide the property. And finally, to give the town manager the task to issue an RFP for services of a certified professional who would then survey and propose developing the site appropriate to the subdivision plat. So those are 3 recommendations I had laid out there. I'm perfectly willing, I think we should debate it, discuss it a little further, but that's where I came down on it. I didn't see any input or counter arguments from anyone, so that's all I have.
If I could step in, I know that our planning and zoning department head is absent today, but I did have the opportunity to talk with her. The commitment that she had was even prior to employment, so it wasn't something that came up. She wants to look at this obviously in detail, and first and foremost, as a town manager, what I would like to say is that I cautious optimism that maybe our efforts in subdividing might not be necessary. Maybe we're able to still sell it in its entirety as is. That being said, after talking to the planning and zoning department head, whatever we do, whatever we decide, and this is not just for Elmwood Park, and I think that we need to share that with the public. This would affect all of our future bills. So for anything in town. So when we think of it, maybe we want to just keep that in the back of our mind. Whatever we decide to do is going to be used for future zoning efforts in different areas of Flaming Beach. But I bring all this up to basically say that whatever language that we propose or we want to move forward with, we definitely consider giving us the left and right limits where we can have sell as is all the way to whatever subdivision processes that the council intends to do. So to allow us to have that freedom. Does that make sense? In other words, I don't want us to, I like the idea that we're reinvestigating the ordinances and seeing how things are, but I don't want it to be so specific to whatever we do to Elmwood Park that if somebody comes along and is willing to take it in its entirety, that through the subdivision process that we lose that ability.
You wouldn't lose it through any of these changes.
Right, and that was just a major, before the planning and zoning director left, she just wanted me to emphasize that, to say that, hey, we don't want to lose that, whatever we do.
We wouldn't through any of these changes, and these changes would have to be, these changes would have to be refined and written to assure legal sufficiency by our attorney. But this is just giving the flavor of where the changes could go. But it would not impact our ability to sell it as a whole. As a matter of fact, whoever bought it, you could make that process a little more streamlined, I think.
My understanding is that the planning commission is advisory to the town council, so I think that's most important. Your number one suggestion here is to have that changed. Certainly the the town council or the governing body should have the final decision as to what we do with any of the town properties here. But the main thing is I consider the planning commission as advisory to the council.
I didn't get this till Wednesday night when everybody else got it. It's the first I saw it, even though it came out from Mr. Deller to you and the town attorney on the 1st of May. You know, we asked the planning commission to do lots of work for us on a voluntary basis. They go and take additional training in order to fill the seats that they have. And from what I see in Mr. Deller's changes here, we're totally cutting him out. I do agree that they shouldn't be the end all. We should be the end all as a governing body, and I will agree with Mr. Deller on that. But I think anything, you know, we didn't get elected up here to sit on this council and be the planning commission as well. So I think they still need to be a viable part of this. And to me, and I think the public image of this is that we're trying to change an ordinance to benefit us, when I question the rest of this council, would we change this ordinance totally to benefit somebody that was a private contractor that wanted to come in and subdivide a property? You know, I feel like if we go with these changes, and again, I agree with Mr. Deller, we need to be the end all. It does not need to be the planning commission. If these people go out and take special training to sit on their commission, and they have more of an education than I do when it comes to this kind of stuff, and we should not totally eliminate them from the subdivision process.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. We would not be totally eliminating them from the subdivision process. It would be at our discretion whether or not we engage the planning commission. So we would have that ability.
There again, they're required by law for us to have the planning commission. And it shouldn't be up to us as to whether we want to include them or not. They should be included in that process.
I'm saying they would be included in the process at the discretion of the governing body.
It shouldn't be our discretion, Bill. They are required by law, and they should be included in this process.
If it's a question of legal authorization, I would defer to our attorney.
Well, I think you guys have both, I think we've heard this over and over again before, and I think you both have answered the question, and that is, currently, the planning commission does due diligence, and then presents their facts to the council, and it's up to the council, governing body, to make the final decision on something like a subdivision, approval of, and such. It's hard enough with 7 people trying to make a decision. They obviously can't make a decision. We've tried for 4 years to make a decision on Elmer Park. Actually longer than that. Take it back a decade or more. We still can't make a decision. And the irony of it is the community can't make a decision. It's apparent to me at this point in time, nobody really cares, except for the people who live right across the street from it. The rest of the community doesn't care. I randomly ask people about Elmer Park, they don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. They have no idea what I'm talking about. And the sad part is we're getting ready to raise taxes. We're going to raise them considerably, and that's a fact. And that could be $1 million or $2 million, depending on how it's sold in the coffers of this town. And we'll raise them again next year, as needed. And so, regardless, that's the fact of it. These are the facts. There's no sugarcoating that at all. You can shake your head all you want. That's the fact. Taxes are going to be raised right here today, in a public meeting, in a public hearing. Presentation will be done. They'll be raised. Going into next year, they'll be raised again if necessary. We have other town properties. Where's it going to stop? What other group is going to stop us from selling the rest of these properties and subdividing the properties? So, I mean, I'm just saying, this has gone on for a very long time. It is what it is, but you know we are going to pay for it. Every single one of us is going to pay for it. We're going to dip a little deeper into your savings account. And the people who aren't familiar with this, they're going to become very familiar with it very soon when they see the tax hike. So that's a fact of that. I'm sorry, I'm not, that's being blunt as I can be about it. So that's the facts. You'll all find out. Anyway, any other discussion on this?
Yeah.
Where we leaving this?
I do have a little bit more discussion, Mr. Mayor, and I don't agree with your statement that
Okay.
only the people behind the park are people that care about it. I care about it, and I live in your neighborhood.
Yeah?
There are other people that live in our neighborhood that care about that park.
Okay.
You know, there are certain people that sit on this council that see dollar signs for, that,
I'm just making it very clear.
well,
The end result is that.
Mr. Mayor, do I have the floor?
You do, go
Okay,
ahead.
then, you know, there are certain people that think that's a great big money pit. To me, it's a great big floodplain. And if we're gonna look at providing infrastructure, then why don't we go look at the numbered streets on 9th Street or 12th Street where we've got all this property and where we can subdivide and build 50 houses instead of 10. If we wanna bring money into this town for real estate taxes, then let's look at some other property other than, you know, a beautiful piece of property in a floodplain that we could use for something else to benefit the whole town, and not just 10 people that want to build a house on stilts because it's in a floodplain.
That's really sad. A house on stilts. How about those people who built to the code, the same code that these houses will be built to? Are there houses on stilts? I haven't seen only one house on stilts on Beach Avenue. The rest of these houses are built in conformance with any floodplains, like you've seen in all the other areas. They're beautiful homes.
There again, Mr. Mayor, I'm going off the investigation that I've
Once
done.
again, grandstanding.
No, I'm not grandstanding.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Very much so are, but that's okay. That's what we're supposed to do up there, right? Anyway, once again, anything else, Mr. Alger?
I just have one question in regards to, because it looks like Mr. Deller had put this together himself, these changes. Has any of this been brought to the planning commission initially in regards to making changes to the subdivision?
If the council decides to move forward with changing the ordinance, a formal ordinance would need to be prepared and presented to the town council, and the town council would need to refer it to the planning commission for its recommendation.
That's Code of Virginia 15.2-2253.
Yes, sir.
That's what I was asking.
Okay.
So like Mr. Lehman said before, you know, we should have, and agreeing with you, Mr. Deller, we should have that final say, but, you know, the Code of Virginia states that the planning commission must present this to us by that code I just mentioned right there, 15.2-2253, the preparation and adoption of amendments to the ordinance. So, and that states that they may, at their own discretion, make amendments and then put them to us, or we can request that as well. So if we were to do this, I'd want to make sure that that is done properly, not just haphazardly going forward and doing this without.
I understand, I agree wholeheartedly, that's why we would have our attorney do it, to ensure legal sufficiency.
I just don't understand the reason why here in your email as well that was submitted in there, that it's important to immediately revise this ordinance.
Well, it seems like we've been talking about this issue, and this issue has been delayed for one reason after another, month after month, year after year. It's time to, or get off the pot, and I'm trying to move the ball forward, that's all. And with that, I'd like to make a motion that we direct the town attorney to revise the ordinance. Does that require, I guess, a vote?
Yes, sir.
In accordance with the document here, in essence, doesn't have to be word for word, but to get the essence of what we're trying to do here. And so I'd like to direct you, does the town attorney make a motion to direct you to revise that ordinance? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. I would point out that in the event that this motion carries, you would still need a second motion to move the draft forward to the planning commission.
It would also require a public hearing, would it not?
Yes.
It would require a public hearing at the planning commission level, and then following their recommendation, a public hearing at the town council.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Are we gonna send this to, the attorney or to the planning commission first?
It's going to go to me first.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? So if you want to read read it the way it should be stated, so since there's going to be a follow-up to it?
I think Mr. Deller's motion was sufficient.
Okay. Okay, well then we'll vote. Mr. Alger?
No.
Mr. Blackburn? No. Mr. Lane?
No.
Mr. Downing?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. That's a split.
Motion fails.
So, let me just say something real quick, and this is going to disappoint a lot of people, for sure. Quite frankly, at this point, I don't think I'm going to vote for the sale of Dog Park. I know it's a disappointment, but here's why. At some point in time, the people have got to speak up. And all we've had, year over year, meeting over meeting, is the opposition to the sale of Donald Club. I've only seen one person stand up and speak on the sale, the sale of the club. And, you know, I think, this is just my opinion, I think there's going to be a point to be made in this. Again, and it doesn't mean that it's out. It just means that, I'm just saying, we're going to raise taxes, simple as that. And the more we stonewall the sale of properties, which we will, because when we talked about selling the ball field, that all of a sudden came up. People started talking about stonewalling that, about how it was at the playground for so many years and this and that. And so, and yeah, there are properties up in the meadows and the numbered streets, and but they're not vacant properties, that they have to be remediated. They have to take the trees down and all that and stuff. And we still have the big crown jewel, I guess if you want to call it that, Lenarons across from Wilkinson's. But we've just wasted a lot of time with this. There's no support to sell it, other than a few people on the council who are thinking in terms of business, thinking in terms of trying to help the 3,600 people that live in this town to not have to pay such high tax and put some money in the coffers. And those people who work up in that administrative office and have been around it, those numbers know what's missing and what the true numbers are. And it's going to affect everybody, including the school, the police, the EMS, the fire, everybody else. It's going to affect all of us. Just saying, it is what it is. I guess, as they say on Survivor, the people spoke, but it's just where I stand on it. What's next? Okay, we're done with that then? Any other discussion on that? New business, item 6, public hearing on ordinance 693, amends town code section 20-2, real estate tax. Public input. I need to close this and open the public hearing.
Just open the public hearing.
Public hearing is open. Let's see, who's it, you, Terry? Yeah.
Is this, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hi, pardon me. Didn't have time to collect my thoughts, but I wanted to first thank you all for being up here. I understand that there are some very serious discussions that need to happen, and I want to start by just thanking you all for your service. The thing I wanted to talk about real estate is, and the market, is first a rhetorical question. Have you ever gotten into an argument with your spouse or significant other, where in that moment you know you took it a little bit too far, and you instantly got to reel it back? The thing that I'm concerned about with real estate and our taxes, is it on? Is that bad?
No.
The thing I'm concerned about with real estate is once you become known as a high tax area, it's kind of hard to take it back, like that argument with your spouse. I personally have been working hard to get people down here, and I can speak to my own experience. I've gotten one so far. My coworker, Diana Stevick, big Steelers fan, almost got her within our boundaries until she started looking at the taxes. And their youngest is graduating from high school this year. They looked at where we spend our money, and they made a business decision to buy just downriver. The water's the same, the sand is the same, the taxes are different. So my only point is, and I know y'all are working hard to get things in order, but my point is that once we become known as a high-tax area, it's really hard to undo that reputation. So I know y'all are being deliberate, I know you're thinking about a lot of this, but taxing and selling isn't a long-term solution to our budgetary problems. But again, thank you all for being up there. Appreciate your service.
Anybody have anything you want to say? I'd like to say too, Mr. Miller, thank you very much for speaking, and also just as a reminder that we're only one half of the tax. A little more than half, but there's another component to this, and that's Westmoreland County, who I promise you plans to raise our taxes as well. So whatever we raise is going to be an additional raise on top of that. So once again, it's going to go back to if people are willing to sit on their hands, then sit on your hands. That's all I can tell you. We have potential out there to bring money into the coffers. Simple as that. And nobody seems too worried about it. Hopefully, maybe there'll be some outcry when it actually happens. Sometimes that's what it takes, unfortunately. It's all fun and games till they say till somebody gets their eye put out. Okay. Any questions, council?
I'm sorry, could I say something?
Sure.
If I wasn't. Eric Nelson, 13, can you hear me? Eric Nelson, 1321 Lossing. Like Terry, I do appreciate the difficult job that you guys have to do, and I do appreciate the financial situation that the town is in. And I'm one of the maybe few, or maybe there's more than a few people who believe that taxes are necessary, and this town needs to have an injection of resources in order to diversify its income and diversify its revenue from different economic engines. So if that means temporarily or even permanently raising the taxes a little bit, I'm all for that, because frankly this town needs, it cannot be run on a shoestring. It needs to have some additional resources in order to diversify. That's really the end, should be the end goal for this town, is to diversify the economic engines and not to rely just on property taxes. If you got to rely on property taxes at the beginning, that's fine, but you've got to bring in new businesses. You've got to really have an economic development plan in order to make this town really the type of town it needs to be, and it can be.
Anybody have anything you want to say? I appreciate that. I'd like to say something if I could. I couldn't agree more. I think all of us couldn't agree more. And you're probably the 200th person I've seen stand at the podium and make the same statement. And we've had economic plans. Year after year after year, new groups come in, new council come in, new planning commissions, new economic development groups come in, year over year over year. And we make little baby steps. I think the town probably looks better than it has in 25 years right now. So we have some interest in the town from some hotels and some other things. But the fact of the matter is, they will look at the taxes because they're going to have to pay a lion's share of the tax, and they'll have to consider all that. As simple as that, unless we give some kind of tax, incentives to get them in here, whatever, which is always a possibility. But it's, we're a seasonal town, regardless of what anybody thinks. We're basically retirees, seasonal, and healthcare is still a tremendous issue for a lot of people. That's why they won't live here full time. But we're making baby steps. We don't have that much land. We have 2.8 square miles of land here. A lot of it's built out already. A lot of it's unbuildable. It is what it is. We could get maybe 600 or 700 more homes up across from Wilkerson in the Lennar project up there. What's that going to do for us? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully one day we won't meet too much opposition on that. I'm sure we will. I'm sure the Bay Act and everything else will come into play, and we'll have to fight that fight. But in the meantime, most people get up in the morning, they put their clothes on, they drive to Richmond, Fredericksburg, Base, Northern Virginia. They go to work, they come back, they repeat that 5 days a week, and pretty much that's it. They typically are not involved. And so that's why you see a lot of the same faces over and over and over again.
Could I add something you maybe don't know yet, but Larry Robeson requested or asked if I would join the Northern Neck Chesapeake Bay Economic Development Partnership, and I agreed to do that. So now we haven't had our first meeting since I've been on that commission, but I'm hopeful that my skills and expertise can be brought to bear to bring some additional economic development. We did have a meeting recently with several different groups, including that one with the Commerce Secretary of Virginia, and we talked about, well, I laid out what I thought were some of the economic needs of Colonial Beach, which is, among other things, includes a hospital or some sort of medical facility. It included having some kind of business that operates year-round, like maybe a call center or something like that. And so I laid out a few of those things, which I think are the things that Colonial Beach needs to be focused on in order to, again, diversify the revenue. It ultimately, at the end of the day, cannot rely exclusively on or primarily on real estate taxes. It has to diversify and have other income streams. So I'm going to try to do my bit with this economic partnership to try to figure out a way to make some difference.
Awesome, thank you. I will say that Dr. Farney's in the audience out there. We met with the principals of several large healthcare groups, hospital associations around town. It's been 2 years, Dr. Farney. Very constructive meetings, and unfortunately they're not ready to facilitate any kind of healthcare unit near us right now. So until the population changes and demographics change a little bit, quite frankly. So, but the only way we're going to get anywhere is people like you doing what you're doing. So, thank you. Yeah.
Well, I love this town as much as everybody else does, and as I said to you yesterday, I want to leave this place a better place than how I found it. So,
yeah, I mean that's the fruit of this whole town is the fact that, honestly, if I've said it before, if you take the volunteerism out of this town, then we don't have a whole lot of pieces left to get all the things done that need to be done.
But again, just sort of the bottom line, I grew up, my parents taught me that taxes are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot assume that the government's going to provide the services without the income coming in to make those services possible.
Yeah.
So, and I remember a presentation that Mr. Looney made before he left about taxes, and I totally believe what he says, that taxes are necessary. In a civilized society, you have to have a tax base in order to create the services that are necessary to support not only what we want to do, the more affluent people, but more importantly, to support the things that the less affluent people need to do too. So I'm maybe one of the few, or I don't know, maybe more than a few that really believe that taxes are necessary.
I agree. I just think it would feel a lot easier if we were just having our single tax.
Completely agree. That's my whole message.
It's the white elephant in the room, is that, and we can have this discussion another day, but I don't know what anybody in here uses the other portion of the tax that we pay for. So unless you use a judicial system or social services. Anyway. Anything else?
Yeah, I want to continue, just not necessarily with you, Eric, this is continuing the, do you have anything else to say?
No, I don't, and I didn't mean to take up so much time. I just wanted to voice my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, is
Yes,
the
ma'am.
public hearing still open?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Pam Tolson, 134 10th Street. I was the one who wrote the grant
to the Virginia Outdoor Foundation on behalf of the town, and I was surprised that I've never heard anything back from anyone on town council about what you heard back from the VOF. But I will tell you that I got a phone call, and after the decision was made, and they assured me they were going to be sending you a letter. Did you get a letter about that?
Nobody got that.
Well, I just want you to know what they told me, because no one had ever bothered to ask, was that the board was very supportive of giving us a grant, but because they had been told that we would not accept it unless it was the full $800,000 that we had requested, they felt that the town was not sincere in its request. And we basically have lost an opportunity there to get up to approximately $350,000, which could have been used to match, use as a matching point and be leveraged into raising that $1 million that we were looking for Eleanor Park, and to purchase an easement, or have an easement purchased by the VOF. And so if you're serious about not moving forward on Eleanor Park, they encouraged me to, first of all, we're waiting for a Virginia budget to be finalized, but there are 2 more grant opportunities to go out to raise money for that, to purchase an easement. And I'm willing to continue pushing that effort forward. And then they very specifically said to me to come back to them and apply again, because they would love to put us over the top. And I was just curious why no one ever was interested in what happened.
When you say no one was interested, who are you talking about not being interested?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
the council not being interested?
Well, I certainly wasn't aware that we had to request the results of anything.
No,
Nobody's
they were-
ever received
they were
anything in
supposed to
writing from
send
the
you a
BOF
letter.
other than our lawyer who was told that they weren't going to support it. We had Margaret Ransom, who looked into it, as well as Richard Stewart, the state senator, who were also told that that the BOF was not going to support it. I just saw her across the street last week, and she mentioned it again. And there is no monies from the BOF to go forward.
Not
with
now, not now. They gave the
this.
$650,000.
Can you bring us some written documentation from the BOF?
I thought they were sending you a
Because
letter to that
Ms. Tolson,
effect.
hang on a second. For 4 different occasions, we were supposed to have meetings with the BOF, and they never showed up. We actually had special meetings planned, and they never showed up. In fact, they called less than 24 hours before the meeting to tell us that they weren't going to show up. So, I'm really sorry where you're getting your information, but I can tell you, this council, as far as the mayor's concerned, never received anything in writing from the BOF about anything. I've only received verbal messages from Margaret Ransom, from Richard Stewart, and our legal representation here, that they weren't interested, that they didn't have the funding, that they wouldn't fund something like that. $800,000 was a number, I think, that Margaret Ransom
Was trying to get a budget.
was trying to get a budget amendment for. It didn't happen, not going to happen.
No, I'm just telling you, they called me, and this is what they said.
Why
to
did they
me.
call me?
I don't know. I thought
Why
they
did they
did.
call Andrea?
But the point is, if you're seriously
How
going,
long ago did they call you?
they called me 2 or 3 days after the meeting.
And I think you should have reported back to us.
Who is it that called you?
One of the staff members from BOF,
What was the name?
I'd have to look it up, but it was
Yeah,
Chris.
please do, because this is just,
And they assured me they were sending the
This
town
is-
a letter.
this is the kind of stuff that just makes everything look disjointed. And
Well, that's what was frustrating for me, because no one
Well, you should
ever,
have, I really wish you'd come to us when you first got the information, because then maybe we could have moved forward at that point in time. It's obviously been a long time now.
well, the point is that they encouraged us to come back to them, that if we're going to go forward, there's 2 additional grant possibilities coming up this year. Rather than sit here, and I'm just offering my services to
No, I
that
understand,
grant.
and I appreciate that. Again, we have to rely on you folks, and you guys do a wonderful job, but obviously, somehow that fell through the cracks, but whatever, so. Okay, anything else? You want to close the public hearing?
I don't have anything.
Anybody else? Okay, public hearing's closed. Council action. What do we need to do?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
Are we going to discuss it or take a,
We can discuss it.
You can discuss it.
Have we solidified that number, is that correct? In terms of what goes on the advertising, right?
Yeah, that's been
That's been
advertised.
advertised, okay. All right, good, thank you.
so it says council action, is that where we are now?
That's what it says.
Well, it's generally, you
Okay.
take action at your regular meeting.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I thought we were going to vote.
yeah, I thought maybe we were.
It said council action. Okay, can I,
Yeah, please.
you know, you guys have all seen this before in different iterations. It's essentially the same document I put out there before. And what the attempt of this document was is to help perhaps reduce some of the property tax increase whereby we could find other sources of revenue. I think one at the top of the list was delinquent taxes. I know Quinn is working very hard on recouping those delinquent taxes. You know, we collect those taxes, it will have a diminishing effect on the amount we have to increase our property taxes by. Same with personal property taxes. A couple of years ago, we reduced personal property taxes. That's cost us $100,000 roughly. That's 2 cents of property tax increase. Let's look at reinstating the property tax and put the tax on the people who get the new vehicles and get the new toys, rather than have the property owners carry that load. It seems like a reasonable thing to do. No, it's
I
not.
disagree.
Okay.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because the reason we lowered the personal property tax was because people who live in the town full-time have to pay the personal property tax. The real estate tax is shared amongst everybody in town, whether you're full-time here or not full-time. So it was an opportunity to give something back to the people who live here and shop here year-round, and utilize all the restaurants, the food lines, and pay taxes day after day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, versus people who have enough discretionary income to own second and third homes to come down here and spend their money on the weekends and during the summer months as well. And a lot of that, of course, has become rental properties and things of that nature as well. So that was the premise behind that, and I still think it stands. I think you know, the burden to be shared by 2,500 homes, if that's what the actual fiscal count of real estate residential homes is in the town, rather than being shared by, you know, where we can take the actual people who live here full-time, which is about 48%, if the numbers are correct, versus 52% of part-time ownership. They get a break for living here full-time. It's small, $100,000, he says 2 cents. The real issue is that we had approved a 6 cent tax increase 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and we only imposed 2 cents of it. So we're still minus 4 cents. So wherever we start with this, you can think of it as 0, but I'm thinking of it as minus 4, is where we're starting. That was built in because we already knew we were behind then, but we got some landfall insurance money that burned a hole in the previous administration's pocket and was gone in minutes, and now we're back to where we were. And it seems to me that's been the operating motive for many years, which is why we carry a negative 5% year over year to where now we're in the hole of $1 million, or right at $1 million. Again, it didn't happen overnight. Nobody's really to blame. It's just it was a methodology that was used, and nobody stopped it. And so we are where we are. Now it's time to fix it, and hopefully not go forward using that same trend. It's just my 2 cents.
Could you explain the in the hole by $1 million?
Yeah, I can explain it. Basically, we had year over year of negative 5%, typically negative 5%, because what we were doing was, the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, I know glasses in here, but we were basing our expenditures on what we thought were going to be revenues, but we weren't actually collecting 100%. We were collecting around 94 to 96% depending on the year. So we were spending money, as my dad used to say, we were writing a check that we didn't, we let her write a check that didn't happen. So needless to say, and obviously, you're a numbers guy, you know, eventually that does catch up to you, so.
Well, from what I see here, the sheet that you just handed out, and it's been in other handouts as well, and we're at a deficit situation for FY19 projected at $248,000, roughly $250,000. And that would assume a zero amount of reserve for the year. What I'm suggesting is, let's look at the other sources of revenue that we have right in front of us, rather than just relying on the increase of the property tax rate. You say the personal property taxes were reduced to give people who live here a break. Well, at the time, according to the contemporaneous minutes of the meeting, it was done in order to encourage people to register their vehicles here. That was the primary purpose of it, not to give anyone a break for buying a new vehicle.
That's not true.
Okay,
So
this is
I sat on the council.
I read the minutes.
I know, I get it. The minutes were, I think, probably missed a big part of that, but that was equal parts, because the theory was that by attracting people from the outside who did own second homes and had an extra vehicle, they could register it here in town, and that would increase the sheer volume, which the numbers should come in for the town, but still keep the personal property tax low. Because don't forget, you gotta pay Westmoreland County personal property tax as well. So, so basically, you talked about new cars, people buying new cars. So what you're telling me is that somebody who works hard and has to eventually purchase a new car, maybe has kids or whatever, that they should have to pay an exceptional burden by having to pay more personal property tax, which I don't think personal property tax is deductible at any level as well. Now with the new tax law, I don't know where it's going to take us, but I do know currently residential tax is deductible.
I don't know about, all I know is people make a decision in their daily lives about what purchase to make or not to make.
Right.
There's no decision to make when you increase property taxes. They're increased, and that's it.
For the discussion and socialization's sake, I think that's exactly why we need to look at real estate tax, because it's the most stable. As a town, I'm looking for stable revenue, income, personal property. Let's just hypothetically say we quadrupled it. Well, most people are going to look for how do they get their personal property out of town. Therefore, I'm going to lose money. You can't move a house. It's a very stable methodology to ensure, and for budget forecasting as well. And a lot of the, Mr. Dunn, a lot of things that you have on that sheet, I've looked at it in its entirety, and a lot of it has great merit. There's some things on there that we can really probably look at over the course of a year and implement. But from a budgetary forecasting standpoint, the implementation of any of those ideas cannot be considered. In other words, there are things we can work towards, but I can't base a budget off of it. So I can't say we're going to make this money. And to revisit the idea that a year or two ago that we were going to sell property and everything was going to make better, and then we didn't sell that property is a perfect example. I can't forecast those theories. So I do think there's a lot of goodness in what you have there, and there's a lot of things that we can do. I just can't use it for our numbers.
You can certainly use projections. That's what you're doing.
Well,
We're not
no,
going to get the benefit of this tax.
you're implementing a brand new concept or idea that we have no historical data on, to where I have houses that are going to sit here and have sat here for decades that I do know the real estate assessment should hold true.
I understand and appreciate that. I guess the point I'm trying to make with regard to, first of all, the personal property, getting back to that. You made the issue that people would move your personal property outside of the town. That hasn't happened. The proof is in the pudding. We've lost $100,000 as a result of reducing our personal property tax. The town has lost $100,000. It's in the numbers.
No,
That's
certainly
2
don't,
cents
certainly
of
don't
property
disagree with
tax
that.
increase. And I think not to recognize that is a huge, huge mistake.
I didn't want to give the impression that I didn't recognize that. What I'm saying is that the most stable way to ensure that your revenues are good for FY19 is to look at real estate. Personal property side, so let's kind of segregate that issue out for a second. But if we're from a forecasting standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint, your point is actually kind of solidifies my point, to where we did a reduction and it impacted us by $100,000. Why would I want to play with that number? And when I'm trying to forecast revenue. So in other words, I don't know how it's going to end up. So people's salaries, the way the town operates, are highly dependent on what we can forecast as revenue. So I would first look at real estate tax, which is pretty solid and reasonable, and also equitable across all the homeowners, versus personal property, which has more volatility to it, quite frankly.
Well, we have historic numbers here to show what we did receive.
No, I agree.
2 years ago, and what we're now receiving, and we've lost $100,000. I don't want to, there's a lot of other things I want to quickly discuss here. I'll throw that out here for everyone's
I mean,
consideration.
that's a column that you're looking at there. Let's be realistic here, and here's why. So let's just say that the money that the people saved from not paying personal property tax has been spent in restaurants and things like that. Thus, it's increased our tax base, which our tax base, meals and lodging tax, has gone up significantly in last year. So there's probably some balance in there. What I will tell you, and I agree with the town manager, another analogy is, look what happened to the boats. Because Westmoreland County still imposes a boat tax, people move their boats out of here all the time. And instead of leaving them here in November, December, January, where the marinas would make money, which would then add taxes back into the town's coffers, people leave them. They go out of here. They go back to Prince William, Stafford, across the river to Maryland. So, I mean, we charge a penny, so they're fine with that, but they still pay a huge margin, especially if you have a nice boat, to Westmoreland County. And again, it's a, call it egregious, whatever you want, but it's a tax. It's a tax on enjoyment. It's a tax on need. And it takes money out of being spent in the town and other avenues, I think. It's just my impression. I think Kyle Schick did a tremendous job in researching it. We presented it, again, consulting firm that Westmoreland County hired even said that it was a loser to have a boat tax in Westmoreland County. They don't care. They didn't care. I just think, again, the philosophy behind lowering the personal property tax in 4 years, 3 years, whatever, ago, was to give the people who lived here full-time a small break, and it is very small, spread out amongst the home ownership here, that can be picked up in meals, lodging, and real estate tax, which is shared by all. So that was the premise behind it. And if the council wants to change it and implement a personal property tax and bring it back, that's still not going to change the real estate tax. So now we'll just have a personal property tax that's high, because it was $4 and, what is it, $4 with the county combined, it's $4.60 or something.
The county is $2.20 and currently we're $3.20.
That's 5 something, almost 6. I mean, I don't even think Fairfax County's that high.
It would reduce our real property tax by 2 cents. The projected increase that we're making now, it would reduce that increase by 2 cents.
So what part of the personal property tax are you going to deduct off your taxes? Or is the average family going to deduct
I
off
don't
their?
deduct any of my taxes, but here's the benefit. I get to make the decision on whether or not I want to purchase a new vehicle or not, or whether I want to continue with the vehicle I have. I have control over that decision. If I feel like I can pay more personal property tax, then I'll buy a new vehicle. If not, I'll buy a used vehicle. I mean, this is just one item to consider. I mean, but it has an impact. It impacts the real estate property tax we're looking at by 2 cents, and that's significant. hearing that, and I guess some of them I'm not convinced that the local sales tax will increase more than what we projected here. I've outlined that here as well. The peer lease agreements, I think that's something we're starting to work on. We need to be more diligent in that. That will bring in a good chunk of change, about $100,000. And again, another 2 cents. We can bring it in. Granted, it's only 1 year. I understand that, but it buys us time to consider other options. Special events. We've talked about special events over and over again. We've talked about special events. We've talked about the peddlers and itinerant merchant tax going up to $500 potentially. We have that availability. We've talked about it. We've talked about it. We've done nothing. That's another option that could bring in additional resources. Permit parking. I believe I heard, Quinn, just a few weeks ago, you mentioned that over the next couple of years, we could actually increase our permit parking because of our comprehensive parking initiative. We could increase that by nearly $500,000. That's a significant amount. You just recently put online here that we're going to talk about later, the homestay, which will bring in more resources. These are things we need to consider before we increase the real estate tax. I'm not against paying taxes, but I think we should consider all sources of revenue. And that's the point behind this.
And again, Mr. Delver, I agree that those things are going to impact, and they have a fantastic opportunity to impact the future that they haven't been actualized yet. And that's what we need. So hopefully, and again, cautiously optimistic, maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, we can revisit our real estate tax rate. But until we get healthy, and until we get over that, we have to perform some type of financial triage. And this is what gets us in. I'm a firm believer that all the things that you mentioned have the ability to really make a difference.
And one of the other items I think Mr. Miller mentioned was the impact on our property values. You know, increasing our real estate taxes has a dampening effect, whether we admit it or not, has a dampening effect on the value of our homes when we come time to sell it. People take those things into consideration. You provided us with an example of an individual who was on the cusp of buying a property here in Colonial Beach and said, I don't think so. I'm going to go a little further down south. So,
it was an interesting example, and what I'd offer you is that oftentimes as we have, everybody wants the services, but nobody really wants to pay for them. They want big city services, but they don't want that big city cost. And that's just human nature. I think people are looking when they go out and they look for a new home. It's a target of opportunity, quite frankly. And if I have people tell me how great it is if I get 200 more homes in here, well, if I have the burden to support those 200 homes and I don't have the tax revenue to offset that burden, then it's actually detrimental to our organization.
okay, I will quit boring everyone with this. I will simply say on the back page there, I've also identified a couple of expenditures. One was the refuse collection, which in FY19 said will cost $206,000. That's roughly 4 cents of our tax increase. I think there's a better way to tackle this issue. I've outlined it here. I think we should discuss it, work the issue. There's nothing wrong with studying these kind of issues to see if there's a better way to do it, if we can increase services. I dare say we don't even know how many refuse stops we make in a given winter. How many we make? How many permanent residents do we have here that actually utilize our garbage collection in the winter as composed to the summer? I bet we don't even know how many stops we make. I open that up, and you know, please let me.
In the winter?
In the winter and the summer. I know notionally how many people we have living here, but how many stops are actually made?
No, we haven't counted.
How much are we paying for
We
each stop?
count the tonnage on a daily basis.
Okay.
So yes, we can give you the tonnage on a daily basis. As far as how many stops we make, no, we don't have a counter on the truck.
So is the lion's share of the cost is not personnel and equipment, isn't it the cost to dump the stuff that you dump?
No, it's mostly equipment and personnel. And repairs to your equipment.
I can drag this discussion further on real estate versus personal property, but I want to make a few points. Both real estate taxes, personal property taxes are deductible on your tax return as itemized deductions. If you itemize, in 2018, of course, that'd be limited to $10,000 in total. I'll give you a little example between real estate and personal property. And I'm going to use a piece of property that has an assessed value of $100,000. A penny tax increase results to $10 a year. Whereas if you increase my personal property tax, I'm sure it's going to be more than that $10 a year out-of-pocket expense. So, I'd much rather go ahead and spend the money on real estate tax than a personal property tax. It's going to be cheaper to me as far as my out-of-pocket expense.
Okay, and I guess the final thing I put on here, and I know we're going to talk about the police department later, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up because, I bring things up and stick myself in the eye all the time. The police department, currently, along with our 9/11 system, the police department is costing us roughly $1.2 million. And now, given the departure of our prior chief and the fact that we have failed to obtain our accreditation, is not now a good time for us to consider reaching out to the county to see if there's any savings in that regard. I think there could be merit, but we don't know. What I would like to see us do is reach out to the sheriff to say, if you were to provide enhanced policing here in town, what would that look like, and what would that cost the town of Colonial Beach? I think that's a prudent thing to do, and just for no other reason than to gain information and knowledge so we can make a decision based on a good data. And with that, I'll stop talking. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. I agree with Mr. Deller on some of this stuff as far as services. I think it's something we need to look at. I think it's something we need to decide to get off the pot and put into effect, aka the peer lease agreements. We really need to look at parking. I had a conversation with the former town manager, and nobody that sits up here and is elected here wants to go up on taxes. We all live here. The last thing we want to do is pay more taxes. The last thing we want to do is sit up here and vote to increase taxes. And I think I speak for us as a whole in saying that. But in my conversation with the former town manager, and I don't want to put this off on previous administrations or previous councils, but, I'm not a rocket scientist, and I'm not an accountant. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm pretty much a worn-out cop. They got a better job uptown. But, it's pretty much common sense when we build a brand-new school that cost us $9.2 million. The money's got to come from somewhere. And in my conversation with the former town manager, she was advised by the people that loaned us the money that we needed to increase taxes by 8 cents. It never happened. It never happened. And now it's bitten us as a current administration or current council in the rear end. And guess what? It's on our laps to do it. And we've got to do it. It's unfortunate. I don't know if I'll seek re-election. Nobody up here that wants to be reelected, or, we all care about this town. We all have our own ideas. And again, I appreciate Bill, I appreciate this document that you prepared, and I think that there's definitely stuff we need to look at. But we got to pay for that school, that plain and simple. There was some horse trading done by prior administration. They cost us $765,000 earlier this year. We didn't make that decision. But guess what? We had to bite the bullet. And now we've got to have this money. So we're burdened with a tax increase, and unfortunately, I've got to vote for it in order for us to continue to provide services that we have. You know, the town manager, the current town manager has looked at the services we provide. Rob and his crew are working understaffed. Bruce and the police department are working understaffed, but they're still doing a good job for us. And this is going to be our test. This summer is our test. And I know that Bruce's staff and he and Rob and his staff are gonna do what needs to be done. But we got to do what we got to do to support our financial infrastructure, if you will, and continue to be able to provide these services. And the only way to do that is a tax increase. I do agree with Mr. Miller and his statement. The last thing we want to do is be looked at as, a high tax area. I definitely agree with that. But we got to do what we got to do. I'm not going to sit up here and ramble, but that's just my 2 cents. Excuse me, 10 cents.
Yeah, I just don't want to get into kicking the can down the road again. That's what I don't want to see happen. That's all, because that's how we got to where we are today. Okay, we done with,
I would just like to add one more thing, unfortunately.
Okay.
A 10-cent increase is going to roughly increase our revenues by just under $500,000. According to the document I have here, we have a $248,000 shortfall of 70 cents. So maybe we need to debate the rate of increase. I mean, we jumped to 10 cents, it seems, but the town manager is recommending 6 or 8. And so I think we need to focus on what's the increase going to be.
We will.
Okay. Is now the time, or are we going to?
well, that's.
It's council's pleasure whether you want to
Now
do
it's
it
good.
today or.
Is that? You prefer that Gladys was here?
I think we can have the conversation without Gladys.
Okay.
Good as time as ever. What the town manager proposes, and the reason why I have that yellow and highlighted 78 cents, is that would give us enough buffer. Now, I feel comfortable at 10 cents as well. I think we all know that our proposed budget is based off of the forecast that things are going to happen throughout a calendar year. So I'm the operations guy and want to get as buffer as humanly possible, but also realistic to know that that has consequences as well. So that's why I highlighted 78 cents. That's $122,000 on a $9 million budget. That's not a lot of buffer. It takes one hurricane, one accident, one act of God, or just something broken that we didn't anticipate. And then here comes a budget amendment. So that's the thought process behind the 78. We do feel comfortable that we've ratcheted down in expected revenues, and we've also significantly cut expenditures. But as mentioned before, both Public Works and the Police Department are working with a skeleton crew, and we know that that's not sustainable over the long haul, but we knew that we had to do our part in reducing costs. So those are just things to consider throughout the discussion. And of course, I'll be here to answer anything I can.
As Mr. Lamont pointed out, the former town manager recommended an 8-cent increase. That was either 3 or 4 years ago. And certainly costs have risen over those 3 or 4 years. And this will just put us even, what we were. It just should have happened 3 or 4 years ago.
There was also a premise that we were going to sell properties, and that was going to restore the coffers. Today, I don't think we've sold, we just sold the old police station, one so far. We do have some in the pipeline to be sold, and I think that will occur in the near future. I own 3 homes and commercial properties, so this is going to be a tremendous tax burden on me, quite frankly. But I also see light at the end of the tunnel. You know, train is not a train, but I really do see light at the end of the tunnel. And we can make adjustments as things get better. But I don't, you know, if you don't have the capital, it's like trying to open a restaurant, which happens down here all the time. You know, you can't come to the table with $30,000 and throw it all in, and not have any operating expenses to keep the thing going when the crowds quit coming. And that tends to be what we run into. We've got down to bare bones. It's not just the employees, but we're bare bones on everything. We're bare bones on the use of paper and ink and everything. We started that a while back. We tried to facilitate making it easy for our citizenry to pay their taxes, their water bills, things like that. We offer technology now. I mean, we've come a long, long way, but there's a cost associated with all that. You know, it's the price of doing business, as they say. And, you know, again, this probably, we would have been sitting at these numbers had we done what we were supposed to do over the last 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. And who knows where we've been doing 25 years ago. But, it is what it is. We're here. Now we got to fix it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we've all realized that, and I can speak for myself in being here for 2 years. What got us into this situation was projected income with our budget. And also, like you said, projected income with these properties that well, we'll make it up with that. We can't bank on it. We've got to bank on the numbers. You know, we've got to bank on the money coming in. And unfortunately, you know, it's like Mr. Robertson said, if something breaks, I mean, are we going to be, you know, we did a couple budget amendments. It cost us $765,000. You know, we've got to be prepared for that. And I think, you know, I'm going to be in support of 10 cents. I don't want to I hate to tell the taxpayers that, and as a fellow taxpayer, that's what I'm supporting, to put us a good buffer in place and in order for us to move forward.
You know, when we had to come up with the $765,500, I mean, we looked at various options. There are additional bond, cash in a CD. We were fortunate that we were in a financial position that we were able to find the money in the general fund and in the capital improvement plan. I made a promise to myself that the first priority would be to replace that money back into the general fund to maintain a healthy balance sheet. I know that's not possible with that much of a tax increase to do what I'd like to do, but I kind of made a promise to myself that would be the first priority, is to replace that money back into the general fund just to maintain that healthy financial position, so we could have opportunities for additional funding, grants, and so on. I know it's not possible. I'm anywhere from 76 to 78 cents.
Maybe if we sell some of the property, we can put some of that money back.
That would be my suggestion. That's going to be first priority.
Yeah.
And the school would benefit from it too. Any properties we sell.
Everybody,
For purposes of, I think Quinn provided a very useful slide here on page 3, where he outlines the proposed budgets for 19 at 78 cents and at 76 cents. You'll notice they are under contingency. For 78 cents, there's $123,000 contingency, and under 76 cents, there's a $30,000 contingency. If we went up to 10 cents, that contingency of $123,000 would go up to about approximately $250,000, so roughly $100,000. And that doesn't take into consideration what I believe are very real other sources of revenue that I'm sure we are going to pursue, and it's going to add even more funding to our coffer. So I'd like us to take that into consideration when we finally decide on a final number, whether it's 6 cents, 8 cents, or 10 cents.
Between the 78 cents and the 80 cents, if we go with the 80, it will kind of balance it out, because, as you know, within the next year, all our materials gonna go up. All around stuff is gonna skyrocket high. Pipes, fitting, you name it, is going up. So if we did the 10%, then up 10 cents, which will balance itself out. But that's not, we still gonna be in the hole, that's 7, 8 cents. I don't care how you look at it, we still gonna be in the hole. Paper, anything that we use in the town, if we have to buy, we gonna pay more money for it.
10 cents is actually, in reality, go back. The data is, it is in front of us. It's really only a 6 cent increase because we never followed through.
And to Mr. Weimer's point, he makes the economy is on an upswing. I think everybody saw it last time it came in at 4.5 or 4.8, which is massive. We haven't seen it in a decade. Now, every good thing that happens to us from a macroeconomic level also has a consequences, and I think that's what's being illustrated right here, that the cost of goods and just general operating things will increase inevitably. It's inevitable that it's going to happen.
Yeah, not going down.
And those are things that we as a small municipality, I can't forecast. I mean, we know it's going to happen to us, especially the ones that keep me up at night are the material costs for wastewater treatment, the chemicals. Because it's not like I can go to a Walmart or to a Sears and buy the chemicals that Mr. Murphy needs from those wastewater facilities plant. So they're pretty much uncontrollable for us. So to your point, and really to piggyback on that, you're absolutely right. Good times when costs are going to go up.
I mean, I'm going to vote for 10 cents because it's actually only 6 cents. And I think it gives us a little bit of breathing room where we can actually, instead of thinking from underground, we can think from above ground and maybe give us a little better perspective. And I know that as things improve and if we make the needed improvements to the town, then what we can do is then we can lower the rebate. I mean, we can make changes that bring some of that money back to the people who are paying the tax. And again, it's painful, but we are where we are, and you gotta fix it. So,
Even if we raise our taxes, all the businesses in town, their prices gonna raise in that. Because, like I said, they have to purchase all this stuff from other places. You know, what you get it for now, one triple, the next year.
From a business standpoint, it's going to be painful because if you're locked into a 3 or 5 year lease, which a lot of businesses are, the landlord or owner of the property is going to have to eat the additional costs because you can't correct the lease based on, unless you have triple net lease, based on that. But it's hopefully some of the improvements that can be made with this money will entice more people to come and spend more money. So, again, I think the town right now is going through a fairly decent phase. I don't know if a tax hike will be a deal breaker in purchases of homes. It may be. But as far as tourism goes, I think we're doing pretty good. I think tourism dollars, somebody out there can remind me, 5 to 1, I believe is what they said. Stacy Martin has told us before.
Yes.
$5 to 5 to every one of ours. So, that is who we are, essentially. Because they come for the river, and can't forget that. So, anyway, anything else on this? I don't even know where I'm at now. Did we close this thing? What have we done?
We're still on
The public hearing?
No, we're done the public input.
Okay, we're done with that. Council action?
We were discussing.
There's no action.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we need the second vote. On the budget.
Okay. So,
Okay, are we through talking, well, what do we agree on a tax rate increase?
I think we know what we all are.
we applied for 10 cents, and then we won't vote on that until the next meeting, right? So,
The consensus is, from the group, is 10 cents.
well,
What are we supposed to agree? Understand, how do we establish a rate increase until we know what the hell it is?
I don't know that we have a consensus on 10 cents.
I can do questionnaire. I mean, we can ask for people if they want to say what they feel. Real quick, Mr. Allen?
Based off everything that we're saying today, I think 10 cents is
Mr. Lyra?
10 cents.
Dallas?
10 cents.
Bill?
I will, in the spirit of compromise, even though I don't believe 10 cents is called for, I believe our town manager has recommended 76 to 78 cents. It's in this documentation that we have right here in front of us. We know better, though, and are going to increase by an additional 2 cents. In the interest of compromise, I would be willing, and to get hopefully a unanimous vote at some point, I would be willing to agree to that 10 cents, provided we insert a sunset provision that says that tax increase will go away after 2 years. Huh?
You can't do that.
Why?
You're adopting the tax rate, you're passing an ordinance, and it's for the next fiscal year, and that tax rate stands unless you change it next year.
Okay, so it would take affirmative action on the part of council to change it
Yes, sir.
the next year.
But
Okay.
But
And I-
if the tax increase and other things responded in the town's favor so favorably that we could lower the tax rate again, right? It's as simple as what we're doing today.
The subsequent year.
Yeah, that's what I mean, subsequent year, yeah.
On the outset, I said I was 76 or 78. I'll support 78. I can also support the 10-cent increase if that's what the majority wants.
And just for purposes of clarification, I will not support the 10-cent increase.
And I'm gonna support 10 cents. So, okay. All right, so we kind of know where that stands. All right. Colonial Beach, hang on, Bill. Get some stuff. Okay. All right, so we're done with that. We're going to open a public hearing that adopts 2018-19 fiscal budget. Tab D of your books. Public input. Susan McGee.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I think I speak loud enough. My son assures me that I do.
Speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear me? I'll pretend you're my son.
Kat, can you go make sure her microphone's working or you can't work?
It's not. And I don't want anybody to have that loud buzzing in their ear. Thank you. Is this better?
Yes. Much better.
Maybe you'd rather I talk to you like I do my son. My name is Susan McGee. I live at 210 Locust Avenue, and I work for Colonial Beach Public Schools cafeterias. I'm a substitute food service employee in the elementary school cafeteria. And I'm here this morning because I want to ask you to use your authority to change the way food service employees are classified and to include in the budget funds that would ensure their salaries are increased. Dr. Newman met recently with all the cafeteria staff, and we learned from him that cafeteria employees are part of a group of employees classed as SOQ employees and are excluded with regard to cost of living increases. Discussions about increasing the minimum wage and continued discussions about health care are currently making national news. All these situations underscore the need for this town to be proactive in addressing the needs of its employees. I understand that the cafeteria director is responsible for presenting financial data to the school board that would show the cafeteria is able to support offering improved salaries and adding additional staff. I also understand that, should those numbers reflect the need, the school board may approach the town council to include budget items to support these needs. May 9, I went before the school board. As I stated to them, I want to convince you that your cafeteria employees are worth investing in. During the school year, between 500 and 600 children are served 4 times a day, Monday through Thursday. On Friday, 3 times. The amount of coordination, planning, preparation, serving, recovery, and cleanup after these meals requires long hours and sustained physical effort. The amount of paperwork required to provide these meals is voluminous. In addition to planning monthly menus, Food and supply orders must be placed, received, inventoried weekly. Monthly reports must be filed at the federal and state level. Continued participation in the school lunch program, which includes the community dinners, requires that our school cafeterias adhere to particular nutritional and serving standards. The director must ensure that each and every meal served is in compliance with these standards. Right now, these employees have a salary of $8 an hour. That's 75 cents above the current minimum wage in Virginia. We are not offered any insurance benefit. I was told that comparative schools in size to ours pay their cafeteria employees $12 an hour. I was also told that roughly 15 years ago, an employee working in the cafeteria was paid $11.56 an hour and received health insurance benefits. What happened? Has our economy so improved that the dollar goes further today than it did then? If you spend just a little time reflecting on the amount of training, research, and planning the director of the cafeterias must do, you will appreciate the amount of dedication and hard work not only she provides, but every member of her staff also provides to ensure these standards are met daily. Admittedly, our town demographic has changed somewhat. We are enjoying a bit more revenue from vacationers and people who desire to invest in a weekend retreat. However, we're still a family town. My father's family goes back literally centuries. My grandfather was an oysterman in this town. He oystered on this river and he drowned on it. While vacationers and weekenders may come and go, our families are going to stay. In today's social and economic climate, I want to reiterate, it's difficult to imagine any authoritative body that would hesitate to act in favor of the well-being of their employees. You can absolutely rely on the people who work in the cafeterias to be absolutely committed to your children and the children of this town. I'm asking you to do what I asked the school board to do. Take time right now. Look at what your cafeteria employees do and the value they add every day to this community, and show them that you do recognize their value and are committed to them. They are well worth your investment. An additional note, and I'm sorry I'm a little late in giving it, I do understand that you're voting to increase our real estate taxes, and on behalf of a few property owners, I'd like you to say no. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I appreciate your service very much.
Thank you. Okay. Any other input before we get started? This is public input. No action, but with discussion. Who'd like to start the discussion on this? Maybe the town manager.
We've had multiple presentations. I think we're all familiar with the numbers of the budget. We've gotten down to the granularity by department and actually kind of was by account number in the past. So I'm able to answer any questions that you might have. The numbers have changed since our last presentation. They should hold fast. Just a recap, we were able to considerably reduce the expenditures, I think, and this is just off the top of my head, and without including specific debt services, I think we reduced expenditures by well over 3, and we adjusted our revenues that will allow us to accurately predict what kind of revenues we anticipate in 2019. Really subject to your questions.
To everyone's delight, I'm not going to regurgitate what I've already said, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I'll fill in for the mayor. Mr. Alger, any questions? Mr. Blyer?
No.
Mr. Rogers?
I have no questions.
All right. Move on to the next item on new business, and that's draft resolution, don't know what number it is, approves acting police chief employment agreement. It's
At the last
here's the mayor.
At the last meeting, the council appointed Mr. Huff as the interim police chief. This agreement simply provides a stipend for the additional responsibility and duties, and it can be voted on at the next regular meeting.
This was the same agreement we had previously. I believe the numbers are exactly the same when when acting Chief Huff took over in the interim for Chief Legg when she left, is that correct?
Yes.
So the finances haven't changed. So Mr. Acting Chief Huff was willing to accept the terms of this agreement, which I think is extremely humble on his part, because it's been several years now, and he didn't ask for an increase in this. So with that, I would hope that we support this as a group. Do we need to vote on this?
At the regular meeting.
At the regular meeting. Okay. So in the meantime, Acting Chief Huff, you'll be Acting Chief.
May I ask a question about this thing? I don't know if we're going to get a chance to talk about it or not. But, you say the numbers haven't changed. I don't know what the numbers are. Section 3, salary is written very cryptically. I don't know who wrote this, but I don't know. I still don't know what the salary is after I read this Section 3 salary. Who drafted this?
I did, and it's the same agreement we've used in the past. It just means that he gets his current salary plus a
I
stipend.
understand that, but what is the salary?
What the salary is or stipend?
Don't you just put it in there? What is the difference? I don't even know the difference between a salary and a stipend. What is it?
Yeah.
Huh? Don't they put this, don't they put the amount in?
What is your salary, Mr. Huff?
At the current time, I believe it's,
Okay. And so if I understand the $500 per day, per period, that's every 2 weeks?
Yes.
So that would be $13,000?
For 13 days, or 26 days, yeah.
Okay, so it's roughly
If
whatever.
it goes an entire year, it would give you a total of 63,000, which is 18,000.
Okay, I guess when I read this, I said, why are we being so cryptic with it? Why don't we just say what the damn salary is?
Well, for one reason, his salary could be one thing now and another amount after July 1. And so
Does that apply to everybody?
it's not intended to be cryptic, it's just.
Oh, I mean,
It would depend where he's at in pay band, things like that,
okay.
so.
I just, I mean, when I read it under salary, I said, well, let's see what this says, and it agrees to pay, blah, blah, blah.
And real quick, just for those on the council that may or may not know, Acting Chief Huff, how long have you worked for us now?
going on 6 years. That's 5 years.
6 years. And you retired from FBI, is that correct?
Yes, sir, 22 years.
You were a field agent with FBI,
Yes,
and is posted as a Fredericksburg office as well, correct?
my entire career.
Okay. So, and that was what, how many years with them?
That's 22,
And you were a graduate of where?
University of Baltimore.
University of Baltimore. Okay. And then, of course, the FBI school. Okay. All right. So, I mean, I think the credentials speak for themselves as well. And I'm comfortable for sure in the interim. And then this council needs to have discussion about what we're going to do in the future as well. So that's something that we need to discuss, bring up on, I guess,
July work session.
yeah, July work session, what we're going to do moving forward with the chief's position. Okay, does that, anybody else have anything on approving the acting chief employment agreement, Abby? No. Okay, so we move to the next one, discussion of the police department. Bill?
Yes, sir, I had thrown that on there because, as I briefly mentioned in our expenditures section, I thought it would be beneficial, again, given that our permanent police chief has recently departed, and also given that we have failed to acquire our reaccreditation, that now might be a good time to look at how we provide the town with our law enforcement services. I'm not suggesting we change anything at this point. What I'm suggesting is we take a look and see what, if any, benefit there would be to having the sheriff offer us a proposal on what the county could do to provide us with enhanced law enforcement support or services. I realize that if we didn't have a chief of police, we would have to change, I guess, our charter, have to go up to the state and get approval from them and so forth. But all that would be doable if in fact it was attractive for us to do so. As I said before, we're spending roughly, when you consider the 911 system, we're spending roughly $1.2 million a year on our police department. There could be potentially an enormous savings if our law enforcement support was turned over to the county. Not willy-nilly. We'd have to have a service level agreement in place that would, and an MOU that would very clearly state what support we would be receiving from the sheriff. May even be a substation here in town somewhere where the officers gather to exchange information or to temporarily take a criminal. But it would be certainly a downsized operation from what we have now at the bank. And I just think, given where we are in our budget process, given where we are in proposing a 10% tax increase, and also, if there were significant savings in that, I mean, wouldn't it be nice to be able to have some money starting to put aside so we could plan for major events, so we could plan for perhaps a municipal center, so we could plan for perhaps a refurbishment of the high school. I mean, there are any number of things you can see coming down the road, and rather than wait for them to hit, maybe we should think about planning for it. And I'm not saying this is the answer, but I'm suggesting we should look at it, we should study it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. As all of you know, and probably the whole audience out there know, I used to work for the police department. I realize that $1.2 million is a large budget. Previous administrations or previous councils made the decision to remove our 911 system and move it to Westmoreland County. That was a major flop on their part. The sheriff and I consider the sheriff and I friends. I consider his whole command staff my friends just because of my previous work with them. We don't get the dispatch service now that we got when we had a dispatch center here in town. We pay a lot of money for second-rate services. If we agree to, if we even, and Bill, I'm not against asking a question. I believe the question's been asked before, and we could probably research that and find out what the offer was. But I like picking up the phone and having a police officer in my house within 2 minutes. Recently, the last bike test, an intoxicated individual decided to ride through my ditch and through the neighbor's ditch and mow down her mailbox, and the police were there within 2 minutes. Of course, he had gotten back on his bike and rode off by that point, but I can honestly say that it wouldn't be good for the town. We've got so much stuff going on here, and you know, the sheriff's an elected official, works for the county, he works for Mr. Razavi. If we eliminate this, if we eliminate our police department, we lose all control of law enforcement in our town. We have too many festivals going on. We have too much going on to relinquish all of that to the sheriff's office and expect them to give us the service that we need. And you know, I agree we're going up 10 cents, but I honestly believe that this is a service that I think I can speak for most citizens, that they do not want to do without, and they do not want to sell out to Westmoreland County.
I feel the same way. I've been on this road before. When they moved the dispatch system, that was the worst thing they could have done for the town of Palm Beach. We can't get the response that we need from Westmoreland County. It's good that we have our own police department here, where you can reach out and touch them. The citizens here need a police department. The school needs a police department who's right there at. If anything goes on, they're there. You don't want to wait 15 to 20 minutes for a police to get here. Most of the police in the county, they work down in the county, down in Kinsey. So, by us moving the police department into the county, it's not gonna be a big savings at all. You're gonna end up paying that money. I don't care, don't say it's 1.2, we might end up paying 2.2, because you won't pay for their services. Either in taxes or in another way. You won't pay for their services. So, why do we have to move our police department out of the town to bring Westmoreland County in the town? Everything's gonna go up, the taxes gonna go up, everything's gonna go up. So, my thought is, leave the police department where it is. For the accreditation, Mr. Huff, they know what to do to get the accreditation back. It wasn't that serious.
When I look at it from the standpoint of value. Value and safety. You know, the move, the 9/11 Center moving to Westmoreland County, the premise behind it could have been good. The sad part is the negotiations and the cost, we lost value completely. We, in my mind, and I spent 31 years doing this, being paid to do it, and a bunch of years volunteering it. You know, to be polite, we got the shaft, essentially. We pay a lot of money for something that we could have kept right here. Anyway, but here's what I would suggest, and I hope the council will support this. I'd like to offer Mr. Deller the opportunity to meet with the county officials, if you want to do that, and discuss and get some hard numbers on what it would cost for them, because for them to do what they say they would do, and I know that you've already talked to them a little bit.
To be clear, I have none.
Oh,
I have none.
okay. Okay, so to do what they have to do, they're gonna have to have a satellite center here in the town of Long Beach. And that would be required because we have 2.8 square miles, but we have the highest density, so they're gonna have to. I think it's not unusual to have just 2 deputies in the county on a weeknight. So that could be as far away as Callio to here. But my point, let me just finish. They'll have to have one command staff officer in that, probably a captain, who will be assigned here 5 days a week, and then he or she will have 2 or 3 patrol officers, deputies, that will patrol the town at different hours, shifts, just like we do currently. So whatever they call staff generates, as well as they won't change the cost to the town for the 9/11 Center at all, period. Because the way the county does it, if you don't know, they break the county into 5 districts, and we're a district. Each district's supposed to pay 20% of the tax. And like I heard, we paid 18.79%, so we're just under, which I refuted, but nobody ever came up with any legitimate numbers at the end of the day on that. Anyway, so that's basically how that works. But I'm more than obliged for you to reach out to Mr. Wasabi, Sheriff Alderson, who's a good friend of mine as well, and find out what the real hard tax numbers are for them to move here, set up shop, our cost of what it would cost, and then have legitimate numbers rather than us discuss it on the fly. I would really like to have some serious hard numbers that say that Westmoreland County, in the proposal, says that they will provide us for the next 5 years the same level of protection we have today at this cost. And if it's significantly lower, it's something we'll consider. I think that's fair. Do you mind doing that?
I don't mind doing it, and I'd like to also, and now that he's left the room, I'd like to coordinate it with the town manager.
Certainly you would, but I think that's
It's a smart thing to do. It doesn't hurt to learn. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I think we're all going to be, I think we'll find out a lot of stuff. I really do. You guys okay with that?
Not really.
Go ahead.
We continually, and
I don't think the numbers are going to add up. I think it's going to be more expensive than what we pay now, personally.
Mr. Mayor, and I don't mean to interrupt you, I don't want to sound like a certain councilman that's not present today, but, you know, these people out here who voted us into office, and we got rid of the 911 system.
Yeah.
You and I went down and had a meeting with Mr. Zabi and the sheriff and the captain, and that was, and the former town manager. And we realized how bad we were getting torqued. I'll just use that word.
Yeah.
I
agree.
You know, I'm not against looking, but I can tell you, after 911 left here, and the discussion came up for this police department to leave this town, they were ready to burn this building down.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Deller, if you want to go pursue it, you knock yourself out. But I can tell you right now, and when you're done, I will not support it.
Well, thank you for your open-mindedness.
I'm just telling you, the citizens who voted us in, and the citizens want their police department here. I learned one thing really quickly when I moved to this town. There's 3 things you don't mess with: the police department, the school system, and the trash service. What did I tell you when we met, Mr. Robertson?
You're right about the trash.
And again, I'm not trying to be open-minded and go against you, Bill, but we were elected by the people, and the people want the police department here.
I think that, again, it'll go back to show that there's value in us having our police department. And I think that's good.
Can I speak, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I've been around long enough, we've been through this before, and look, I understand budgets, and I understand, I've had enough meetings with the town manager and conversations with Angela and Dallas and everybody. Currently, we are on a shoestring budget, period. I mean, I'm just telling you operationally, we could not go any lower. And we've made it clear to our people that that's the way it's going to be this year. And, you know, we've had those discussions, frank, and, you know, in the past, we have always had issues with attracting people, and the biggest issue is retention. Our starting salary here, I think Westmoreland County, I had a meeting 2 days ago with Chris Hawkins and John Newberg at the county, and we discussed a multitude of things in a 2-hour briefing, and their starting salary is a little bit higher than ours. King George is considerably higher now, so kind of in our own backyard, you know, we're dealing with that. The officers that are here now, and I know Dallas was a big part of the department and contributed greatly to it. We have a group of people here that want to be here, okay? Selfishly, I speak for myself. I'm a retired FBI agent. I get a paycheck every month from the Fed. I like working here. I don't necessarily have to be here. I enjoy being here. I enjoy the people in the town. I enjoy the department, our members. But I'm not going to go on for very much longer, but the one thing I do want you all to know is and I've been through this before, and Dallas was on the PD at the time when this happened. When you start talking about consolidation with the county, our people are going to find out about it, and then everybody's going to come to us about this whole thing again, and it's going to cause some turmoil. I'm just telling you that up front. I understand numbers. I get it. I understand the whole process. But there's also a backstory too, that when you start doing that, we already have issues with retention. And to be honest with you, we have a strong possibility of losing one of our best officers here in the next couple of weeks, maybe even less than that. So I just bring this, I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm just being straight up honest as I can be. And I'm not speaking because I'm the acting now. I'm speaking for the department as a whole. But that's what
that's potentially what we would deal with. And we've had, and I'll be honest, we've had several, within the past 6 months, people apply that were certified police officers that we just could not hire. Conversation with Westmoreland County the other day. Everybody's in that situation. This is a pretty tough time for law enforcement. You have to turn on the news and tell you don't have to watch it very long to understand that. So I just want you to understand. And I'm not opposed to it. That's not the point of the conversation. The point of the conversation is just to say that, hey, when these conversations do start, that it's going to stir the pot. And ultimately, I guarantee you, because I've been through this before in the position that I was before. Even when Chief Platt was hired, just researching the information over Google, talking about getting rid of the police department. I mean, who in the world would want? I mean, why would you come here and fill a position if you think your job is going to be gone in 6 months to a year? I mean, you talk about a retention issue, or any police officer to begin with, because every department has openings in Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, Stafford. Spotsylvania County and Stafford County probably had half of an academy class up in the Rappahannock Regional Academy. Half of those classes, normally 40 people, are filled with just those two agencies alone. Fredericksburg City has a couple, and then in northern that, we also have a couple. So I just want you aware of some of the backstory, and I'm not, you guys call the shots, but.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
I think it's good. I think it's good input, but you have to understand part of your job is to alleviate those fears. Part of your job is to have those kind of discussions with your staff. And quite frankly, it is.
Sir, look, let me just say this, okay? Because I've been through this before, okay? And in the position I was acting for 5 or 6 months, a couple of years ago. And if somebody came to me, like I said, I'm not speaking for myself. If I resign tomorrow from this department, I still get a paycheck from the federal government every month, okay? But everybody else in my department does not. So if you're talking about having people potentially lose their jobs or whatever the case may be, I'm just telling you, but that's the conversation that we start.
Okay. Real quick, before there's any conjecture in this at all. Let me just be very clear. So my intent of this is simply to ensure that we compare apples to apples. If there's going to be any discussion at all on losing trash service, police department, wastewater treatment, water, sewer services, I want hard, factual data and actual contractual agreement from the other entities saying that they'll do it for this, and it has to be proven value at the end of the day to the town. And I'm not talking just finances. I'm talking that there's the same amount of people on the streets or more, that we're getting the same protection, had the same reliability in radio traffic, automobiles, and the same reliability in each individual police officer's abilities. Because I've seen this before, where you don't always get the best and brightest sometimes when you're the outpost, as they call it. Anybody who's been in the military knows how that goes. But to be clear, if there's citizens who think that it can be done cheaper and better, and there's council people who feel like it's something that should be discussed, then I say, discuss it, but bring factual information. We throw it out there, and then it gets out into the rumor mills. And I've actually already heard this before today. I've already heard this before today. So, in fact, I mentioned it to you a week ago. So, my preference is to have cold, hard facts. And I'll leave it at that. I like our police department here. I think we'll lose value. I I think we'll lose another issue that hasn't been raised. So your insurance companies for both police and fire, for the fire side, is the ISO rating we get, and that's based upon our fire protection from the local fire department, its proximity to the community, its water supply capacity, and how many calls they run and how many people make each call and things like that, how much equipment they get out on call. I don't know the police side, but I do know there's an insurance component to how insurance ratings are done for each individual homeowner in this town, based on proximity to police department, based on theft, murder, and things like that, car theft, especially property theft primarily. So, does that change? Is the question I have to ask as well.
And Mr. Mayor, also to piggyback on that, and I know we've talked a lot of serious topics today, but I want to put a positive spin on this. And the positive spin is we're growing. I totally anticipate this town gaining in population. And I feel that as we look at outsourcing, and I'm all for socializing and open discussion, but with the police department, if we grow this town to a city, which is my intent, I need organic assets. I need a police department, I need a fire department, I need a finance department. I want to control our wastewater, not a private corporation. That's what we do when we grow as a city. And I think we're well on our way to positioning ourselves to do that. I think we're going to see over the course of years that our population is going to increase, and we're going to see a lot of goodness. So I feel that every time that we look at a police department, whether it can go to the county or not, it feels like a step back philosophically. It feels like if anything, we as a city, we're going to gain more things that we need to do independent of that. And there's going to be some goodness, because eventually we should be able to go to the county down the road and say, why are we paying county taxes for a city? Why wouldn't we? And we'll have a leg to stand on. The more that we marry up with the county, with things that we can do independently, we can't fight that fight. And those are things that I would like to think, long-term planning. These are long-term agendas and goals that we won't see in one fiscal year. These are things that we have to kind of set our horizons out and understand that, hey, police department, yes, it's expensive, just like a school. But, oh, by the way, our school is top-notch. Oh, by the way, our police department is standalone, minus the dispatch. And as you mentioned with the insurances, so the secondary and tertiary effects of those things are enormous. And as we approach that 5,000 goal population to the city, it's going to become more and more important. And those are just things that I want to keep in the back of our minds as we have these discussions.
Mr. Manager, years ago I went to school for local government, and in those days the population had to be 5,000 to become a city. Is that still,
The research that I've done, I'm tracking that a tier 2 city, I believe it is, still 5,000 to the state of Virginia. So that's a number that I have on my wall.
That gives you independence, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
The county
Yes, sir.
could possibly give us independence. Just check.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to got a couple of comments. The young man who's in the back of the room, we just hired him, Bruce, and he was here earlier, he went out on call. He moved over from Warsaw to Appahannock.
Yes, sir.
He's exploring the possibility of moving here. We've hired him. When we looked at the optional tax thing with weekend homes versus full-time people, that threw us into a chaotic spin until we found out from I guess Mr. Stewart that we couldn't do that. Why are we going to put our police department, who's already understaffed, into the same chaotic spin until we do this? I cannot agree with it. I'll tell you, recently we had an officer who's a good friend of mine apply to Prince William County. Prince William County is going to hire him. He's probably making about $35,000 here as a police officer. Prince William's going to hire him. With overtime up there, he'd probably be making $80,000 a year. And he didn't take the job because he likes to work here in Colonial Beach. He could very easily go down the street to Westmoreland County and maybe get another $1,000. He don't want to work for the sheriff. He could go to King George and make a whole lot more money than he's making here or at the Westmoreland County Sheriff's Office. He chooses to be here. He likes this community. He lives in this community. Why are we gonna stir these guys up? We need these guys and girls right now.
What is stirring them up?
Putting the rumor out there, we've got the precedent right here that we're possibly gonna eliminate our police department.
No, we're not gonna, we're doing a study, that's all.
Actually,
We're trying to learn, that's all. Now, if that's,
We tried to learn with different tax bases too, and that didn't work out, but it.
okay, it didn't work out.
Mr. Deller, let's look at what's on this paper. Let's put our time and effort into what's on this paper. The parking plan, all this other stuff that you say we're lacking on revenue.
The last time I looked, $1.2 million was on this paper.
Okay, so why don't we put our energy
So we're
into
looking at
that?
it.
Why don't we put our energy into that instead of selling out our police department?
It's my energy at this point.
So, okay, so I asked a question. If the council is in favor of asking Mr. Deller to work with the town manager to bring back factual, hard number data from West Warren County, if they may not be interested in doing it either. We're being one-sided right now. They may say, we're not interested in doing it. We don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. Whether or not you want the hard data, whether or not you want factual data. Simple as that. I asked the question because we have a council person who's followed it up. It's out there, and we've had a little bit of a discussion on it now.
Was the Board of the Police Department for Colonial Beach? I said no.
Okay? Ms. Gallagher, what, you got a point of view on this?
I understand Mr. Lehman's point about not wanting to stir the pot and acting chief as well. I don't think it will hurt too much. I know it will be, like they said, stir the pot, make it feel like that they, are not wanted. I don't think that that's what it should be looked at when we look at the possible cost of West Warren. They can come back and say it's going to cost us nothing extra, we can save all that money, we can put it for something else. Or they can come back and say it is a lot more and it's going to be not worthwhile for us to do it. I think if we go in the understanding that it's just to look at the information, like you said, what are the costs? But also at the same time, let the police staff know that we aren't looking to get rid of you. We're looking to make sure that the town's properly protected. And if that could be done at saving money by going to the county, let's look at the information. But at the end, if it comes back that it's break even, or only a slight, increase that we can get from that, we still don't have to go with it. We still have to make sure that the town is protected and it's done, like I said before, not only cost-wise, but also for the safety of the residents. But I think looking at the information, getting the information is fine, and then we can have a fuller discussion after that. But also at the same time, we do need to let the police know that we're not doing this because we want to get rid of them. It's just, we're looking at this information.
And that's a great point. I think the police, as well as Public Works, as well as administration, you've already cut down to the bone in those organizations. We talked about, there's been discussions about hiring outside people for water and sewer. Been discussions about hiring outside people for the water and sewer plant. There's been outside discussion for trash. There's been outside discussion for school, consolidation of schools. There's been all kinds of discussions. We throw this, it's been thrown out there before, it gets out into the rumor, becomes innuendo. The fact of the matter is where are the facts? Where are the facts? So, my opinion is, or my thought process is Mr. Deller brought this up. I feel like if Mr. Deller, working with the town manager, wants to bring back to this council the hard numbers, an actual legitimate agreement that is better for the town of Colonial Beach, then it's something that we look at. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't. I don't think it's possible. But again, I already know what happened with the dispatch. I see how that went. And I can tell you, the meeting that we sat in for 2 hours was not a positive meeting.
And to your point, Mr. Mayor, I have no problem commenting or serve at the pleasure of the council. I have no problem investigating it. If the council chooses to, I'll go full force at it. But what I also would like to point out, because I'm bare bones and I've stripped everything, that my staff does not have the extra time to entertain.
I understand that.
These types of actions. It just doesn't exist. So my time is your time, and I have no problem with that.
Mr. Rod?
I have no objection in going out and having discussions, collecting the data, but it would have to be tremendously overwhelming before I would support doing away with our police department. I mean, it'd have to be a tremendous benefit.
And the charter itself says that you have to have a police chief. And that's all the charter says, that you have to have a police chief. I remember reading the charter for a long time, but, and that can be anybody on the council, I think the mayor, anybody can be the police chief. To be a town, an independent town, you have to have a police chief.
So what that does for the police department and his employees, he will say, okay, they want to get rid of us,
No.
we can go back to the office, they say, we done.
Hopefully. Well, I would hope that your employees are smart enough to read between the lines here, that there's no intent to that. It would be like Rob, his employees would have already left if that was the case, because we've been down this road with sewer, water, trash, and everything else.
And as one of my concerns is that we do it again. It did this is the third time with refuse
Right,
for me.
right.
Each one of those times does affect your employees.
It does, absolutely.
So if we are going to proceed, I would certainly request that we finish it this time. And we will never have to make our employees feel this uncomfortable feeling again. That would be my request.
I agree.
One other part of it too is with the emergency dispatch. How much would that cost to get that back here in town?
I might be able to help you out with that. I met with them 2 months ago, and I think the total move back to us would be well over $500,000, and it would be painful and arduous, and we would have the continuation of costs. So while I think over the long term, over the course of maybe 5 to 10 years, we hit a break-even point, given our current financial position, we just can't afford to do it right now. That's something that I would hope. Again, I philosophically want to go the other direction. I want to bring our assets.
So Russell, how much we pay a year?
I would have to go back and look, sir, but I think it's over
$250,000.
$270,000.
Yes.
So is that $500,000 right up front?
Well, it would be, the issue is in the technology, dispatch, and Westmoreland has a great, fantastic setup now. There's the manning that we kind of are not getting value added that we anticipated 2 or 3 years ago. So if we were to hypothesize and say, okay, we want our dispatch back, then we would have to think about all your IT, so the computer system, the communications technology, which is pretty sophisticated, then linking back into our new BB&T location at the bank, which has never had the dispatch there. So it's something on my wish list that I hope we can get to one day. It's a hefty bill. It's a hefty bill. The goodness that we did have going to Westmoreland County, or I should say the perceived goodness, is that you were going to get economies of scale because you would have X amount of dispatchers servicing the whole county in 24-hour service. But the problem is that when that segregation of duties or when those duty positions came up, our Colonial Beach asset also answers Westmoreland County's calls too. So you're not getting the value that was originally sold to us. And that's kind of how we got there. So now we're kind of stuck. We're kind of stuck to where we don't have the money to bring it back. We're not getting what we thought we were going to get. And quite frankly, I don't point the finger at the county for that. It's the way the operation is built. So if we're able to get our general fund back through revenue increases and just good diligence on expenditures, then hopefully we can look at that in years to come. Does that answer your question, sir?
But you said $500,000 overall with the initial cost of
The initial move itself. just literally, if we decided today that we wanted our dispatch back, I can say to you that I was told that it would be at least $500,000 just to be able to bring that capability back to the beach, not including the staffing, not including all the numbers that we hadn't run.
We couldn't get that through like a bond or?
No. Well, see, that's how we got in the position we're in now, is that we've got things with credit cards, regular bonding with credit cards.
So presumably say $500,000, say we got a 10-year, say that we could do this. Right now we're paying $270,000 with the interest. Wouldn't that be, that money that we're paying towards that now?
So I think I understand your thought process, and that's just $500,000 for the move. You would still then have an operational cost for the dispatch once you got back to Columbia Beach, which wouldn't, well, if we were to save money, it would probably not be, not a lot. You'd still have over $200,000 bill just for the labor, and it's 24-hour shift, 3 shifts, 8 hours, and you start doing the math at X amount. Your labor is going to still be there. But to bring the technology back is what you would have to eat. And current financial position doesn't really warrant us being able to take on another bond, because it's just money that we're going to have to pay back within.
I think there's a good point also what the town manager's saying. And that is, once it's gone, it's gone. It's hard to bring back. It's very expensive to bring back. So I think, the way I understand it, being on council previous to the decisions that were made about the 911 center moving to Westmore, talking to past council people, if they could have it back, that vote they would have bought back. That would have changed. They make no bones about that. So, but it is what it is. So, real quick, I can just tell you from Bruce, from my point of view, you folks have absolutely nothing to worry about. Okay? But if there is a person in our citizenry who is interested in, or thinks that it's realistic and needed to look at those numbers, and Bill has constituents as well, then I think it's fair. It's only fair that they get those numbers, or they're not withheld.
I'm not saying it's not fair, but I just wanted everybody to know, I know Dallas knows, he was in the House for several years, and, no, trust me, I understand fairness. I get it. I understand numbers, I understand budgets, I get all that. But I just wanted everybody kind of collectively know that I guarantee you it's probably, I'll go back to the office today, Monday. I'm just talking about rumors.
Yeah, I get it. I lived that dream myself for a very long time, because every time there's a tax increase, then there has to be, you have to take a look at all the hard things that nobody wants to talk about, and unfortunately, the employees, especially at the beat level, they pay the mental price of wondering what's going on, okay, because they don't have access to all this information. But I think I'm trying to convey as clearly as I can that the citizens also deserve an opportunity to know if we're being fiscally responsible, all right? And, I understand people's feelings could get hurt, but what I can say, and I will say this outwardly, that I will not vote for anything remotely to change the police department from leaving here, unless it is so compelling that even you would say you're a fool not to vote for it. Okay? So, and I think you heard that from Dallas, and I know you heard that from Lyburn, and I think Phil said unless it was so compelling.
You hear it from me too?
And you hear it from Bill as well. So, I don't want to beat the dead horse, which is what
The notion that we just want to look at a topic suggests we're going to change it is just faulty. That's not the case. I just want to understand the numbers of it, and I also want to understand what service enhancements they may be able to bring to the community. Who knows? Let's have that discussion.
And in their interim, I did get a chance to talk to Captain Hawkins, Chris Hawkins, when Chief Black first said he was going to resign. We knew that a few days before it went public, obviously. And I also knew that some officers were in the pipeline to looking at, they weren't so much looking, but being recruited from other jurisdictions that offered a little bit more incentive. And he said that they were more than happy to help us with whatever we needed if we asked. And you and I had a conversation the other day, and I think you helped facilitate that.
I had that conversation with he and Major Hoover
Okay.
2 days ago.
Very good. So if you're comfortable with where we are right now.
I'm already in the process of, there's going to be, I think you're going to see a lot of proactive work between our agency and the
Okay.
county. Matter of fact, probably as of meeting this weekend.
Very good.
There's some things in the pipeline, but I've already had those conversations. You know,
Okay.
we're short, they're short.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in professional courtesy and inclusiveness and
Yeah.
working together. And that's basically what our meeting was.
That synergy alone may be enough to bolster what we have, the lack of officers on the street right now, or not on the street, but having to work so much.
Let me just do a shout out right now to one of the officers. I believe he was standing in the back of the room. Was that Officer Moore?
I believe we were.
Okay. I was driving the golf cart down Irving, and he was out of his police car actually checking parking stickers to ensure that those cars had parking stickers on it. And I can tell you, I only saw that happen once last year. It was down at the end of the point here, and it was 2 female officers. Well, I guess one was in training, and they were out of the cars actually looking at these vehicles to see if they had parking stickers in them. And I know that's not a sexy thing to do, but it's really one of the reasons we hire him, and it's a huge revenue generator for us. So I commended him. I stopped the golf cart and I introduced myself and I said, I just want to commend you for actually getting that, huh?
Did you have your sticker on the golf cart?
He didn't. Anyway, I don't have anything against the police department, believe me.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I answer a couple of your questions?
You can.
One is, it's permissive in the charter whether or not to have a police department, so the council could decide to dissolve it. However, if council did, I believe it would invalidate our golf cart ordinance. There are some, we have to have a police department to have a properly adopted ordinance. Now, there are some localities that have gotten themselves exempted from that requirement, but that would require legislation from the General Assembly.
Okay.
Okay.
I've heard that before.
And then in terms of becoming a city, there is a population requirement of 5,000, then the town would have to have a referendum, would have to then adopt an ordinance and reach an agreement with the county. We couldn't reach an agreement with the county as to services, then we would go to court.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Fair enough. Can we move to the next item? Discussion of school resource manager grant? School resource officer, I believe that's supposed to mean, right? School resource officer? Right. Okay. SRO? Okay. It's open for discussion. Mr. Manager?
Yes, I'll go ahead and start with the history. I think everybody knows in the last 3 or 4 months across the nation, there's been 3 or 4 significant events at school shootings, and it's becoming more and more apparent that the necessity for an SRO is very apparent. We're here just to bring it to light that we recognize the fact that an SRO position is needed for the school, and there's always going to be the question of how it's funded. We don't have a way ahead right now. The way our finances is probably good, not only good for the order, but also good for the public to know that how we typically do things is the school has their budget, and we approve their budget, and we give X amount of dollars this year. As you approve the budget, you'll see that we did level funding for the school with the understanding that we were successfully able to retain 315 Douglas Avenue for that level funding. And we're also going to reduce the debt that the school has on their books by roughly $350,000. So it was good for all parties involved. It gave the school the level funding they needed. But we also want to acknowledge the fact that the school resource officer capabilities still hanging out there. Been able to talk to the school board and to the school superintendent multiple times at length on how we can look at acquiring that. And this is really just a discussion for the council to be aware, for situational awareness, that it's still hanging out there. The SRO have had multiple people from the public approach town manager's office, and I'm sure the school board has too. And we've had great interactions this semester with our police department, going out to the school and providing educational seminars for the students, parents, and probably most importantly, the teachers. TPPs, how to respond, what to do if. So the awareness has been generated, and really leaving it open to council to discuss the necessities of an SRO, the possible funding for the upcoming school year. I think we have a school board member here, present as well, that can provide input if needed. And there's some financial components that can be discussed either today or in the future. We do have the summer to work with it. So, but in the spirit of open transparency and general situational awareness, we can talk about that at your leisure.
So, how much funding we need for the resource officer?
That's a great question. I would think, and I don't know what a school resource officer, whether it's depending on grants, see, what you're going to run into is that there are grants out there that will help assist in funding an SRO. Now, does that grant, and each grant is different, so the language of them is different. So let's say we might have a grant that says we're going to pay X amount for this school year, and you're on the hook for the other amount. And then the other amount would be either coming from the town or the school. What we could also do is look at the ideas and say, hey, the need exists. Why don't we look at hiring another beat cop to perform the duties of an SRO, and to where the school has them for 10 months, we have them for 2 months, 10-month school year, and then 2 months we can use it for parking, or conveniently enough, the time when we increase our population through tourism. So that's an option too.
I don't know what our running starting salary is for the police department off the top of my head. Chief, what's the, I think it's roughly about 35.
About 35.
34.5 was
34.5.
what it was when I left.
34.5.
Right, so if you take the benefits, you multiply that times 1.7 without doing the calculations, it's going to put you in the mid-40s. So I'm going to say before equipment, before the training, just straight from a salary perspective, a beat cop would probably run us in the mid-40s. And again, that's a rough number, so, but that's kind of what we're looking at.
So, the school has paid that part of the salary.
Well, that's what's up for discussion. The budget that I've proposed does not have an SRO in it from the school nor the town. So there's no allocation of budget to an SRO.
Did the school's budget have an SRO?
No, the school initially requested about $200,000 or $300,000 more than the level of funding that we were able to provide. In that additional request was the SRO position. I think the other one was, an elementary, and I think Mr. Tributini, correct me, I think there was a library assistant, a nurse for 2 more, and there was a couple other things. Psychiatrist, yep, that was the other one, because we have to contract that out by the school. So when we did level funding for the school, one of the things that had to fall short was the SRO position.
There's a part-time SRO though, isn't there?
There is, and I think the rough details on that is he's there for a couple hours a day. He is grant funded. I think the number is somewhere around 10,000, and don't quote me on that. I think it's around 10,000 with the SRO help. But what I've offered to you is, and I think we can all agree after watching the news in the last couple of months, that part-time might not get it. And the discussions I've had with the school, and I think they would agree with me, is think of sporting events, think of anything that can happen during the school day, that there's a true need there. And while we, as a town, provide police officers for those, outside activities like a basketball game or a football game, from a legal standpoint, I think it would be very advantageous if and when something happens, we could say that, by gosh, our SRO was on site during the event in question, and oh, by the way, the town would have X amount of police at whatever event that is. I see the benefit to it. But as with everything, a benefit has a cost associated. So,
Chief, So, I understand, I think I understand the situation we have. And yes, sadly, they continue to have school shootings and it will continue. One thing I've noticed, though, some of the school shootings didn't discern whether or not there was an SRO on site or not. They still went in and did school shootings. The question I would have was, in the interim, before we can actually come up with some actual money or decide what the council has to decide what it's going to do, and the school has to decide what they're going to do, is there any reason why during the course of the day, we couldn't have one of our officers basically working out of the school? They would respond on their calls. They would patrol part of the day, but would spend more active time at the school and also would have a vehicle at the school.
Well, currently, I can tell you what we're doing right now. Not in school, not a couple more weeks, but we have every shift, mostly in the daytime, we've increased control in the school.
Good.
I mean, literally walking through the school, literally just almost like a beat, like a sector post or something. That's been increased. We've got a lot of good feedback from that, obviously. The officers enjoy doing it. The kids, it's my understanding that the kids, they really appreciate it, especially in elementary school. And that's what we have done. We continue to park a car over there. It's probably in some ways it's probably a deterrent. I mean,
It is a deterrent.
It's what we can do, and that's what we are doing. So we're doing the best we can with currently what we have, and it seems to be having a pretty good impact.
Good. Good. I just wanted to make sure that we're utilizing all of our options until we can come up with a better plan.
And given the current manning constraints and the current budgetary constraints, we're trying to utilize them and maximize what we got. And then this is just to bring it to light. This is just a situational awareness that this is kind of still hanging out there. I know it's a topic that has come up from time to time throughout the community. And I just wanted to socialize this aspect.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question, and that was the fact that this SRO grant was recently, there was one out there, and we didn't apply for it.
We applied for it. It was applied for. Correct?
Well, we did not. I did not sign off on it.
Right, nor would I.
I think I speak for everybody here in the fact that we want a police officer in that school. I think it's very unfortunate. I don't blame you for not signing it. I don't blame the town manager for not signing it. I think it was, somebody dropped the ball on many areas. But I did a lot of research on this, and this grant was going to cover a police officer. The school had agreed to cover the in-kind part, which was around $13,000. Moving forward, Mr. Robertson, I would ask that if we're going to work together with the school, that we set a timeline, we figure out what the school's going to provide, what the police department's going to provide. There was some work done on this, and I realize it was last minute, but I feel like that I can't say we, because we didn't know about it until it was done. I would encourage you to if we have this opportunity again, to work with the school, to set a timeline. Ultimately, this thing came out on April the 12th, and I realized that we didn't get our information from the school until the Wednesday before, it was due on Friday. I realized that Sergeant Morgan's didn't get hers, it wasn't completed till near the deadline. I will tell you also that I've spoke with Sergeant Morgan's, and there was information that was not provided by the high school principal. There was also information that was not provided by our finance department, because they were too busy. And nobody's too busy to give this information and to make this happen. I was appalled when I got the mayor's email that we had this opportunity and we didn't seize on it. So I think I can speak for the council, and I will speak for myself. If we have that opportunity again, I want to know about it. I want to know about it as soon as it happens. And we damn well better get our paperwork in and signed and sent out and put our name in the hat for this position.
Understood, sir. Understood, sir. And in the spirit of expediting and making sure that we have completeness for next time, and also in the public forum, what I would recommend is that we go ahead and discuss the financial piece of that. And what I would propose is what has been done in the past, I think 3 or 4 years ago, to where if we do decide whatever option we have, whether it's grant or whether we decide to put on another BCOP, whatever avenue we choose, let's talk about the distribution of costs between the school and town. What I would propose and recommend to council is that if the school receives an individual for 10 months out of a 12-month year, the town should be willing to pay, the town, not the school, should be willing to pay 1/3 of whatever the cost is that is not covered by the grant, and the school would then pay the 2/3. That's actually a very good deal for the school, because 1/3 is twice the month. So if you think about it, 1/3 should be 4 months, but we'd only retain the usage of said officer for 2. So if we can go ahead as a council and as a governing body determine that that's about the ratio we need to look at for the remaining costs, I think that will expedite any future paperwork.
I think at the end of the day, we're paying for it. Whether we're paying for it out of the school board budget or whether we're paying for it out of town budget, it's still coming out of our coffers.
Good, so this shouldn't be a bad decision, should be pretty rapid.
No, and that's the thing is that, it's not if it happens here, but it's when it happens here.
Yes.
And I don't want it to happen next week and the blood be on our hands.
So do we agree on that ratio?
Again, I say we actively pursue a grant. We work together with the school board to get the information that we need. This grant was not hard. I deal with federal and state grants every day. That's my job.
That's why I was amazed it came to me 2 hours before submitting.
But there again, you as the town manager assigned it to the police department, or to Danny, for my reason. Sergeant Morgan's worked very hard to get that information together. I'd say she done it on time that she was working. I know she was working that weekend. It's probably why you saw her on Friday. But I think it's unfortunate on many different avenues. I think folks with the school board, with the school system dropped the ball. I think we dropped the ball. And I think it's very unfortunate that we did not have the opportunity to apply for that grant. So moving forward, what I'm asking you to do as the town manager is if we have that grant, if we have another grant out there that you orchestrate and you make it happen, that we get all these players together and we get all this information together and make a viable attempt to get this SRO position covered through a grant. Then we can talk about who's going to pay for what.
Well, that's the issue. I'm afraid that given our current budget, because it's not in our budget, it would take a budget amendment. Therefore, that's what I'm trying to do is try to expedite right now to make sure that we don't run into this crunch. So let's say, for example, a grant comes up tomorrow and it's due 2 weeks from now. You're not going to have the opportunity to do a budget amendment to support the monies going to the officer, no matter what percentage we say was paid. So if we can agree as a governing body today that a 1/3, 2/3 cost share, then we can be able to satisfy that grant, and it's sustained.
But the problem with this, and we don't know, because we don't know what the grant stipulations are going to be.
Well, wait a minute, does Westmoreland County have SRO?
Yes, they have to.
And who pays for theirs?
The school in its entirety.
They pay for SROs in
Yes,
their entirety.
out of the school budget.
And we're willing to pay how much, 1/3 of it?
1/3.
But again, it's a misnomer because we pay the whole school process anyway.
And there again, I'm talking with the grant process. This one, we could look at a federal grant that would pay, 100% the first year, 75% the second. We don't know what we're dealing with the grant till it's there.
Right.
The same way with this state grant that we missed out on. It was an in-kind grant, so we had to pay a percentage of it, which the school superintendent told me that they had agreed to do. And we were going to have to apply for it the next year. And the next year, it was a 4-year process, but we would have to apply for it yearly. I think our town and our community, the size of us, and us having our own independent school system, we were a very viable candidate to get that grant awarded to us.
Oh, couldn't agree more.
And my thing is that we had staff on our side, we had staff on the school board side that didn't realize, you know, I guarantee you, Mr. Tribbett sitting out in the audience wanted that just as bad as we did.
Right.
And the rest of the school board. But the problem is I don't, you know, this was known about in April the 12th. So they had well over a month to work on this. I probably could have completed that grant in a week, max.
I agree.
You know, and we failed. We failed. And the thing that bothers me the most is there's nobody sitting up here that knew about it until we failed. So moving forward, I'm asking you as
So we know, yeah, we know we have, so we know what to do, all right? So we have to coordinate our efforts. So that we don't find out at 8:30 night for 11:30 PM deadline. Moving forward. That's not gonna happen. I'll never sign off on something.
No, I don't blame either one of you for not
You know,
signing.
There's no way in hell to sign a piece of paper like that, 3 hours time to make it, you know.
And one other thing, I think it's important to realize that if we apply for a grant and they give it to us, it doesn't mean we have to accept it. It's just like the DOF thing. You know, if we don't, just because we throw our name in the hat doesn't mean we have to accept it. But it doesn't hurt to put our name in the hat.
So Bruce, we're doing a little bit more than we had in the past, keeping officers up there right now, correct? Just what you just explained to me a few minutes ago, we're keeping a patrol car up there as a deterrent, and we have officers in the police more than we have previously. Currently right now. Okay, so in the meantime, I feel a little better about that whole thing. And so when you talk about the blood on our hands, I get it, I understand what you're saying, I think that's a little bit over the top, because I think all of us, we bear responsibility, but if somebody wants to take a gun into a school, and I don't care if you have a whole army of police officers, they're going to be successful at some level. So let's hope our deterrents continue to work until we can conjure up an agreement with the school system, with Mr. Tribbett and his group over there, get a grant and move forward. But we got to start the dialogue now. And I know you have. I know you already have. I know you've already had discussions. I think you guys just had a meeting yesterday or the day before. So, you know, I don't want the public to think that it just fell on deaf ears and that we're intentionally missing opportunities. I just think that somewhere in a transaction, not everything was represented initially, and you know, from a standpoint of you know, spending the town's money, I wasn't going to sign off on anything. The town manager wasn't going to, the police chief wasn't going to, and I think at the end of the day, even the school said they weren't going to support it, or the school superintendent said he would not support it, the language the way it was that time, because none of us had a chance to really read it. So anyway, but moving forward, I think we can open dialogue, keep it open, and hopefully by maybe have some clear, concise information going into the next school year on what we'll have. Now, I will just offer this up. Maybe at some point in time we consider having a year-round school resource officer. Maybe the school decides that they'll, during their summer stuff, that they can also utilize a school resource officer. And the reason I say that is because school resource officers are extremely effective at sharing information or receiving information. Kids are a lot more prone and a lot more willing to talk to the school resource officers than adults are. And so a lot of time, a lot of really good, concise information can be garnered from children, needless to say, whether you like it or not. So maybe that's something we look at. Maybe we don't worry about a 10-month, 2-month. Maybe we look at a year-round thing. Maybe the school opens up its doors in the summer, gets more, you know, as time goes on, more recreational stuff, and that we need an officer there, just to make sure that the facility's being not guarded by them, but secured by them, but there's somebody there. So anyway, just food for thought. Bill, did you have something you want to say?
No, I just wanted to, I'm glad we finally touched on the grant issue, because that was something I think needed to get out there. I guess what bothers me is not only missing this opportunity, but are we aware of all the grants that are currently in the hopper, whether they be from the police department, public works, or the school?
No, I don't have visibility over the school in terms of what we have internal to the town.
That may not be a bad idea to try to gain that visibility, so we know the total population of grants that we currently have in the hopper that may require or will require your action.
I think the school actually has a grant writer on payroll, is that correct?
Yeah.
They do.
And I know we don't, so, I mean,
Now, as things improve, I mean, it's, again, this is a wish list item that eventually the town will be able to support a full-time position for a grant, probably, but we're just not there yet. But yes, the tracker makes perfect sense, and that way we know what's out there.
any questions?
Until everything falls into place, you still, as town council, the governing body of the town, you still are the stewards protecting them kids at their school.
Correct.
At any cost.
Correct. Which is exactly why we wanted to bring it up, to centralize that aspect of it today.
I understand where you're going, but you still are the stewards, make sure that school is protected at all times. Even at the basketball games, football games, whatever, there always should be a policeman there on ground at their school.
Yes.
If the school board can't pay it, then we gotta figure out a way to pay it ourselves.
All right, can we make this 82 cents?
That would fix it.
That was half a joke. Sorry.
No, I didn't say it.
Hey, I mean, let's face it, it costs
It
money to do
It costs
this.
money to do it, but.
You know, they don't come out of thin air.
Well,
I do like.
Well, in all honesty, not to interrupt, but in all honesty, I mean, if you go forward with the 10 cents, you've got $250,000 in contingency. So you've got more than enough money to pay for it.
Well, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to point out too, I understand what Mr. Lyburn is saying, and I fully agree with it. I agree with what Mr. Deller said. But if our intent is to start off this position with a grant, we don't want to fund it initially. Because then we're not eligible for the federal or the state dollars. So I just wanted to put that out there for your thinking too, because if we do that, then the state's going to say, we're already paying for it, we're not going to give you any money to support that program.
And I feel like we have a significant police presence in the schools at this time right now, from what I'm hearing, for what we can accommodate. And in the meantime, we need to actively seek out grants.
And then keep in mind that you know, we're approving our budget. The state budget hasn't been approved yet.
Right.
So there very well may be another DCJS grant coming out after July 1, as well as the Department of Justice. They put out grants federally for this same program. So I think the thing is I think we need to have somebody at least looking. You know, because we wouldn't have even known about this one had it not been for Ms. Cameron, who was working with Dr. Newman, and they found that grant. So my thing is that I know we don't have staff to do that, but I'll be happy to get on there and look on occasion, because I'm always on both websites.
Does the council recommend Dallas Lehman for grants for?
I look, I mean,
Approved.
I'll prove it.
Mr. Ryan?
I would.
I approve it.
all right, let's move on. I'm getting hungry.
Okay, next one is tab F, which is discussion of draft ordinance of Airbnb.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just introduce it briefly. The town manager asked me about the possibility of approving an ordinance so that we would have a registry of people who rent their properties for less than 29 days. And having that registry, what it does is it enables us to know who should be paying transient occupancy taxes. There's flexibility in the ordinance. Some jurisdictions have gone farther than others in terms of safety requirements for the property, fire extinguishers, fire alarms, things like that. And this is just a very first draft for you to react to and provide input on.
I get it, I really do, and I think it's important, but I'm gonna tell you, I've said this before, and I've got a real pet peeve with another situation that's like kind of this in this town. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I know the police department, public works, and I keep advising the town manager on it. We have a significant issue going on in this town. And let's see, how do you say it? Taking a single-family dwelling or a business and turning it into multiple living spaces. And as far as I know, most of them are not registered as such. And by law, I believe, state law says that no more than a certain amount of persons can live in one room. I think it's 2 per bedroom.
So that's a zoning issue.
Okay, but hang on, I want to get to that. So, if you haven't, take a drive up and down our streets and look at the amount of people that are living in these small, single-family dwellings, and then look at how they have reposted the doors with 110B, 110A, 110C. Look at the different air conditioners and the different windows. Nobody's being checked for fire hazards. Nobody's being checked for any kind of multiple occupancy dwelling to see if they fit the state and local code on that. There's one coming into town that I did not even know was utilizing it, and now I'm watching them go up and down the stairs all day long, the sides of the building. And I'll let you guys figure that out on your own. I'm just telling you right now, that it's an issue. We need to get a handle on it now, or we're going to have a real problem on our hands, much bigger. And it just takes one bad event. And unfortunately, the people living in those, I'll call them tenements, will be the victims of really us not doing our job. We all see it. Everybody here sees it. So, when you see 9 cars in front of the house, there's a reason for that. And all jurisdictions have gone through it. I watched it in Arlington over the years. We went through it. And you got to get a handle on it. You really do. And it's not their fault. They need a place to live. They can't afford it. But to put, 15 people in a 2-bedroom unit. We had that happen. You remember the last place we had that happen? Beachgate. And what did we have happen at Beachgate?
It was ugly.
Yeah, it was very bad. And so I see it trending back again, and we got to get a handle on it. So Airbnb, why I think we need to address the tax on that. I agree. But I think...
Yeah, and I'm not advocating.
No, I know you're not. I get it. I know where it came from. I've had several talks with the town manager, Kathy, wherever she's at, and other people who own Airbnbs. I don't own one myself. But my point is we have, this is an issue, we have a much bigger issue that can affect human safety. I think we really need to get the handle on it. Yeah, I've actually been in touch with the manager the last 2 weeks. We're going to reach out with Allison, and we're going to take a drive-by, and we're going to start looking at some of this stuff. And unfortunately, I think the General Assembly changed the law into what's considered a nuisance for houses. I mean, it has to be proven drug activity. And he told me this several years ago.
That's for blighted properties.
For blighted properties, yeah. Well, some of these properties are blighted that these people live in. That's my point. So it's a real mess.
So what we have to do to make it legal for us when we're doing this?
Well, we need our
I
lawyer.
think that we do have some capabilities.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to talk with Allison.
That'd be awesome. I think we need to do it. And I think with the help of the police department, we can address some of the addresses. And I can get the fire department as well. And if we need to, the state fire marshal's always going to help us
It's
with
not
it.
about rational thing, it's just more.
No, it's to protect the people that are living in those places. So, anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because that's been something I want to get out on the table here. Anything else? On Airbnb? Did you have a chance to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as far as this Airbnb discussion goes, Right now, the state does not tax on Airbnb themselves. They leave it up to individual jurisdictions to tax. So it'd be up to us to create an ordinance to tax. Is that correct? Would it be an ordinance or?
No, currently, all Airbnb should be paying transient occupancy
Okay.
taxes. What this does is it creates a registry so that we know that they're there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the question that came up though was business license versus the transient occupancy tax.
Yes. Yes,
That was the
there's no requirement right now, and Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no requirement for them to get a license, but the problem is that our finance office can't see who's running an Airbnb or a cottage. And from what I've been told that the term cottage tax is
That
not,
is not a
it
valid
is not a valid thing. What it really is a transient tax.
Okay.
So we have no ability to see who's doing this type of operation in our town, much less collect the revenue.
I don't know that that is correct, that there's no obligation to get a license. I think we would need to look at that.
Right.
But I think the issue is that people don't get a license and they don't pay the transient occupancy. Some honestly don't realize it.
Correct.
But again, that's the purpose of the enabling legislation from the General Assembly, was so that we could create a list and tell people what they need to do.
So let me ask you this, because I remember when this discussion came up a couple weeks ago, a week ago. If ABC LLC owns 5 of these properties and is doing strictly as Airbnbs, why would they not require a business license when they're an LLC doing business in town?
Who is that?
ABC LLC.
Why wouldn't the town require it?
Yeah, why would the
No,
town require a
that's-
business license?
Right, that's what I was saying. I'm not sure that they are exempt from getting a business license.
Right,
I think
because
what the
the-
town manager is saying is that.
I just didn't want to name the name of the company that was on our email that we were looking at, but they were an LLC.
Right. I think that anybody who operates an Airbnb may have to get a business license. We need to look at that. But I think what the town manager is saying is that because they don't register in any form with us, we don't know where to look for the money.
Okay, so my question would be then, are you going to collect the tax via a business license tax
It's possible that
Or-
it could be both.
or a lodging tax? Right.
The transient occupancy is a trust tax that the proprietor collects on behalf of the town. It never belongs to anybody except the town. The business license tax would be entirely separate.
Okay, so when will the long arm of Westmoreland County reach in and want their portion?
I don't imagine that they will.
They already have.
So what are they doing?
One in particular proprietor here of Airbnbs has been paying Westmoreland County tax,
What tax?
a lodging tax, some kind of business license tax or something. Because that person came to the town and the town wasn't sure how to deal with it, so the same person went to the county because this person didn't want to get in trouble for not paying some sort of tax.
Are they
And when that was brought to my attention, I said, that's ridiculous, because my wife, who does the CPA stuff, she was like, that's ridiculous, you didn't need to do that.
Sounds like they pay erroneously. If you can give that information to the town manager, we can talk about it.
Certainly, well, you know what I'm talking about, so, yeah, okay, good enough. But these are the things, these are the kind of questions that I think need to be answered. And we have to have a firm handle on how we want to approach this, because here's another part of this. We don't have any lodging right now. There's nowhere for people to come and stay, so we're really dependent on Airbnb. Every time we have a bike fest, you have 5,000 people in, and 4,900 of them leave at the end of the evening because there's nowhere to stay. At least with Airbnbs, we're capturing another 100 people or more to come in and keep spending money in town. So until we can get some hotel growth, I don't want to hurt the Airbnb people. I think we're due our taxes, but I think anytime we can bring people into town to spend money and visit the town, we'll eventually hopefully buy property, which is the same premise under the boats. Why we don't do a boat tax and why we don't do the transient tax, things like that. So, and they spend a ton of money in town. Anyway, it's just food for thought. Thank you.
Can you go out on Airbnb? I've never been out on it. I assume it's some kind of app where you find rooms or
It's a
something.
website.
Okay, can you go out there and type in Colonial
Yeah,
Beach
yeah.
and then develop your own list of, folks?
Everyone pops up.
There's several different.
Yeah, HomeAway.
HomeAway, Airbnb.
Yeah.
So have we started developing our own list yet?
Well, that's how we identified the need to have this conversation, is that we realized that we know of 20 to 25 Airbnb-esque type operations, we're only 10 of them do something.
Okay.
That's kind of how we got there.
Don't they pay a resort fee?
No, no, they buy the property, they pay property taxes on their property. Some of them only rent rooms, some of them live in the house that they're living in, and they rent a room for a night.
Some rent the whole.
Some rent the whole place.
Property.
I mean, that,
Not here, but in another location, I had to pay a resort fee. You pay, it's almost $115, you got to pay $52.
well, that's a hotel. It's, yeah.
No, but it's one of these properties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you pay a resort.
Well, yeah, some places do that, some places don't.
We don't have a resort fee.
No.
Now, I have some condos, and I buy a business license, and my property manager collects the lodging tax, resort fees.
Right.
I don't get involved with that, I just buy the business license.
Yeah. Blame it on someone else. Anyway, that's CPAs, right? Okay, can we move on to the next one? Discussion of changes in one-way traffic on Douglas Avenue in front of Town Hall. Mr. Manager, I guess you want to speak on this?
Yes, it's come to my attention to multiple citizens that there's a desire to make Douglas Avenue two lanes. And from what I understand, just looking at a brief history, that at one time it was, and then we had the school, and then there was a true need for it to be one way. And I think after speaking with the PD as well as with Public Works, there would be some value added if we could go back to two lanes, especially as we've had this swell of population come in for the summer. Not everybody has to go to Washington, so there's another way that they can kind of get to the point, and that will kind of alleviate some pressure. That being said, though, our town hall is located there, and we have many people that come to town hall that are senior citizens and or handicapped. And everybody's gone to town hall and said, if you go to the parking lot, you have to utilize the stairs, which we have new handrails for, but sometimes we have wheelchairs, and we want to make us, the town hall as user-friendly, as handicap accessible as possible. So what I want to do is bring to the attention of town council that I see goodness, and also from a VDOT standpoint, if we get the half the street goes both ways, and our funding will increase too, because we calculate the roads. But at the same time, we want to retain our ability to have handicap parking there, so they wouldn't have to utilize the stairs. And this is just a generally thought discussion and such like.
Well, I raised this issue about a year ago with the old town manager, if you all recall. And I was told at that time that that road was one way and it had to be kept one way, so it would be wide enough for people with disabilities to get in and out of their car.
That's correct. But we're actually looking at resurfacing the road now and looking to include the existing right-of-way across the street and whether we can get to the point where we still have the room for the shoulder. And we are actually looking at that now.
If you drive down that particular road, you'll see the telephone poles, and we have at least 2 feet that we could line that road. Just from sheer, I'm not talking to you about standards, just common sense standards. You have at least 2 feet, in some cases 3, for the asphalt to be elongated, which then could support retaining the handicap capability and having it go 2 ways.
That's great, I think that's great.
Probably fell on deaf ears, I don't know if anybody paid any attention to it, but we now own the building. So now we can
Just
actually.
yet. We have to vote to accept
Right.
it.
Well, we're very close to owning the building. With that, we can comfortably make changes, spend money as needed for whatever handicap.
So will we put trail red on the opposite side of the road also?
Yeah, we own the opposite side, that's the right of way, right on the opposite side. Yeah, not the sidewalk side, opposite side.
Opposite side, so we have to put trail red down on this side?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think we can probably just move the shoulder out a little bit.
Okay.
While we're talking about handicap accessibility, I don't believe our police department is yet handicap accessible, is it?
It is not, but if there is